by our good friends over at Big Willie's. Big Willie's Bar is, again, voted best sports bar in Salt Lake City, best pool hall in Salt Lake City, best place to watch a game, best place to watch a playoff game, best place to go and watch the bets that you made play out in sports, whatever. 1717 South Main Street. Tell Patrick and Michelle and the crew over there that I sent you, and they'll take extra good care of you. They've got drink specials every day where they try to keep the drink special every day in that like $4 to $5 range, which is a real throwback because a cocktail, an alcoholic beverage nowadays, anywhere else, costs usually at least double that. And they're very proud of keeping the price point low to serve the people of Salt Lake City. And look, I don't drink. If you don't drink, you can still enjoy Big Willie's because they've got the video games there. They've got the pool hall. They've got an incredible food menu and a staff that's going to take care of you even if you're not running up a big bar tab. All right, so, you heard Bill Riley in his Ute Minutes. The Morgan Scalley era is officially underway. We talked about this a little bit last week. Bowl game in the rearview mirror. The transfer portal window is officially open. Conspicuously absent for me so far are announcements of any kind from Devin Dampier or from Bird Ficklin. Now, this might be a situation where we should treat it like no news is good news because obviously we don't want to see Devin Dampier's name go into the transfer portal. You don't want to see Bird Ficklin's name go into the transfer portal. You don't want to see any more of these defensive backs. You have seen some announcements made on social media about people re-signing, which is just an insane thing to see college football players putting out there re-signed. Not resigned, re-signed. Nate Ritchie put it out there. Sione Motuapuaka put it out there. And I imagine these negotiations are going to continue during this transfer portal window. And I really want to know who is the acting GM for Utah football right now. Like, who is helping Morgan? Is Morgan Scalley handling this all himself at the moment? How closely is Morgan Scalley working with Mark Harlan and with the collective / the collective that sort of doesn't exist anymore? The revenue sharing is, as far as we know, still maximized but laid out with a particular pay structure. And it's effectively a salary cap for the University of Utah. Beyond the salary cap, how much flexibility does Morgan Scalley have to make a phone call and say, hey, this Pegan kid that is coming down from Utah State, he's in the transfer portal, and I hired the offensive coordinator that helped him have an incredible season. We'll get to Kevin McGivern here in a second. But today he's at Rutgers, which is the truth, by the way. And Rutgers is paying guys $1 million to be wide receivers. At Rutgers! These are the numbers you have to fight with. These are the numbers you have to play with. These are the numbers you have to compete with if you're a head coach and a head coach going into your first season. And just this last weekend, filling out your staff, really happy to see Coach Bumpus back. Never wanted to see Coach Bump leave. Chad Bumpus is back in the fold at the University of Utah as wide receivers coach. Kevin McGivern is a name that most of us didn't really land on when we were speculating or we were talking and we were figuring out who the candidates were to replace Jason Beck, who, of course, left to follow Coach Witt to Michigan. Also, Doug Elisaya, strength and conditioning coach, who has been there since the 2005 season. He gone. Doug Elisaya was hired 6 months after Kyle Whittingham, and he was elevated from his assistant coach position. I mean, it moves so fast, but we're not used to that, right? We've had this sort of leisurely on the beach in Mexico, send me to Hawaii kind of pace when it comes to Utah football, with the consistency and the long-standing coaches in multiple different positions and even the support staff have all been mostly the same for Kyle Whittingham's tenure, and now the Morgan Scalley era begins and an acceleration happens. We're all sprinting along trying to figure out. Kevin McGiven, Utah State offensive coordinator, San Jose State offensive coordinator. He's been all over the place. Funny enough, Kevin McGiven was the quarterback's coach and play caller when I was at Weber State University for my last year of eligibility after I transferred up there to finish out with Ron McBride. And I'm happy to say that, James, not to brag or anything, but this same Kevin McGiven, he called at least 5 plays that were designed to get the ball in my hands when I was up there.
The 5 most memorable plays of that season, no doubt.
Obviously. So at least 5.
5 touchdowns?
No, 6 touchdowns, actually, because no, just kidding.
Well, if you count the 2-point conversion, it's a 6 touchdown.
So, look, I have a little familiarity with Kevin McGiven, but how are you feeling? 877-353-0700. I want to hear from everyone, okay? We knew some of the things that were going to happen. We knew that Colton Swan was going to be elevated to defensive coordinator. That was in the offing, and that's exactly how it played out. I found out about a week ago that Coach Odom was coming back, former Ute, actually former 2-sport athlete at the University of Utah, played center field and played safety, was a big part of Kyle Whittingham's early tenure.
It's kind of center field in 2 different ways.
There you
right?
go.
Like, that's interesting. You hear about 2-sport guys, and sometimes you hear about 2 sports where the positions have some symmetry, but I don't know if I've heard it quite like that. Maybe quarterback, point guard is the only other one I've heard where it's like, oh yeah, obviously it's center field safety. That's really good.
So Derek Odom is back. He is the new Utah football safety coach. Kevin McGiven is your offensive coordinator. Chad Bumpus is your wide receivers coach. Jordan Gross, one of the 3 best offensive linemen ever to play at your university, is back to coach the offensive line at your university.
When he saves your number 1 recruit.
Potentially.
Too. Potentially.
Probably.
Potentially.
I think most likely keeps Kelvin Obot in the fold. And look, that's not the only reason to hire him. Think of it. He's a guy who has been coaching a little bit in high school. So will there be an adjustment? Will there be some growing pains? Is he going to be an elite recruiter right away? Who knows? All right. But I saw some Texas Tech people weighing in. I saw some BYU people weighing in. I saw an Arizona State fan. Oh yeah, they're hiring this guy just to save the number 1 recruit in the class. Well, I'm not even here to tell you that's a bad idea if you can hire someone that's going to save a recruiting class or save the best recruit in the history of the program. That might be reason enough. I mean, we see it in basketball all the time where Uncle Joe or dad or mom gets a job just so that player will go to your university. We don't always love it, but I'm not here to tell you it's a bad idea. In the case of Jordan Gross, let's not do the thing where we pretend that he doesn't have the credentials that make him a compelling coach, a compelling position coach. All right? Jordan Gross was an All-American. James, do you know how many sacks Jordan Gross gave up his final year at the University of Utah?
0?
The answer is 0.
That was just a guess. I was thinking maybe it'd be more like 1 or 2, but 0 is, wow.
He ended up being the number 8 overall pick in the NFL, and he played his entire career for a Carolina Panthers organization that was very up and down during his tenure, and he was a stalwart, mentor, all-pro, Pro Bowl type player. He was a constant through the many shifts that Carolina was going through at that time as a franchise. He knows how to play the tackle position especially. He knows how to scheme up and understand defensive fronts. He knows how to beat defensive fronts. And he has an intimate knowledge of it and of film study and of teaching the game, because if you're able to teach the game to fellow pros that are coming in and drinking through the fire hose, I promise you're going to be able to do it with high school kids or transfers in who have months and months and months to be with you before they end up in live work. That's one of the things that isn't ever talked about, really. Like, whatever the offense is that Kevin McGivern brings in, and I think part of the reason why you hired Kevin McGivern as an offensive coordinator is because his style is very similar to Jason Beck's style in that it is a fluid offense that relies on personnel more than it relies on anything else. Because this transfer portal does exist, and because Morgan Scalley is just now embarking on his head coaching journey, and he's just now figuring out what he needs this team to be, what he wants this team to be, what with the personnel that you bring in and that is left over from this year's team, you're actually able to make this team. You need an offensive coordinator that's like, yeah, I can give you a 22 playbook or 22 play playbook that everyone can absorb quickly for spring ball, and let's go. Kevin McGivern's got that. I spoke with a couple people going all the way back to the Weber State days that have worked with him. Spoke with a guy who was coached with him or coached by him. Spoke with a couple of Utah State coaches over the weekend. What do you think? What do you think of the hire? And the only negative thing, the only thing that could even be like remotely perceived as negative, I was told that Kevin McGivern can get into a groove like we all do when we're playing Madden or whatever, where you get this one play or you get this one guy or you get this one thing, and we got to throw the ball. We got to throw the ball right now. We got to throw the ball right now. We got to establish the run right now. We got to establish the run right now. We got to establish the run right now. And that he can get into a little bit of that groove to where one other thing is working, but he wants to establish the run, or the run is working, but he wants to establish the deep threat or something like that, and maybe could potentially leave things on the table because of that. All right, so if that's the criticism of Kevin McGivern, you can make that criticism of every play caller that we've seen in Utah football and at other places recently. It's not the end of the world for me if that's the biggest gripe against him, especially if you've got you've got a defensive-minded head coach who at times is going to be like, hey, I know I'm not Kyle Whittingham here. I'm not going to do the let's just run the ball 3 yards in a cloud of dust thing. But, like, don't get stuck in this groove of trying to throw this ball deep. I don't know who the quarterback's going to be. Let's assume it's going to be Devin Dampier. That's not what he's best at. Just like Bryson Barnes, who you worked with last year, that wasn't the thing that he was best with. Let's play to our strengths. I think Kevin McGivern is going to be more than capable of doing that. And I can tell you one thing that he's good at that basically nobody's good at in college football. And I say this with all sensitivity and all respect and all love for my former teammates at Weber State University. When you don't have anything close to elite quarterback play, he can find you yardage in the offense.
That sounds a lot like what we were expecting and what we saw from Jason Beck about just getting yards from anywhere, right? Where you don't necessarily have to, the way he described his offense to us all through the year was, I see what personnel we have, and then I design an offense around it, right? That kind of sounds like from the quarterback position, that same kind of thing with they were talking about with Jason Beck, now we're talking about with Kevin McGivern, where it's like, hey, I will see what I have, and then I will make that quarterback productive, which that's fantastic to hear.
I know that some people feel a little underwhelmed by, oh, you got the guy from Utah State?
Hey, man, like, it worked last time. You got Broncos offensive coordinator. Let's just keep going to the well.
All right. Steal Broncos offensive coordinator next year, too, if you need him.
From the Mountain West, specifically.
Here's the thing. We didn't know Jason Beck was going to work out the way that he worked out. Now, I will say, I'm not here to just blow red smoke up your behind. This resume is not as impressive at Utah State as the New Mexico resume was for Jason Beck to bring in. I got a little pushback last week when I asked questions about whether or not Morgan Scalley's insular existence, his isolation, so to speak, as only ever having been at the University of Utah, whether that could hurt him and hurt this team in a situation like this one where you got to go out on short notice and you got to replace a bunch of coaches, and you probably got to do it with a smaller checkbook than a lot of teams have and things like that. Could this be an issue? And we're going to find out. Look, I will remain optimistic that Kevin McGiven is going to do a heck of a job, because what I know of him is that he is capable of doing a heck of a job. Would it be a more comfortable situation for Morgan and everyone else if he had a broader net to cast because he had worked at UCLA for a couple of years, because he had been to Tennessee, because he had taken a coordinator job at Colorado? I don't know. I really don't. I'm not telling you that this – I love the fact that potentially Morgan Scalley could spend literally his entire football career in the state of Utah without ever deviating, without ever stepping outside of the borders from an employment standpoint, from a playing standpoint. You know how prohibitively, insanely rare that is in today's era of football. He could do it. Morgan Scalley could coach for 20 years in this position, and when he retires, he could be like, I am Mr. Football in Utah, legitimately.
Utah man am I, and actually it
The
would be the
Utah
case.
Man. The Utah man.
One logo, right? That's what he keeps saying, which is honestly a really cool line by him. I've only had one logo. And like, but you're right. I did hear your interview with Sammy Mora where she said, listen, I've heard that he is one of the best at networking in the region. So as far as coaching, so maybe he's been able to, and I mean, that doesn't surprise me if that's the case, OC, and it shouldn't surprise you either. Like with the personality that we know he has, of course he's making good friends and networking really well, even though he's not on their staff, right? So that being said, it has really been guys he knows because he played with them or they played here, right? That's what it seems like it's been. That doesn't really indicate that his vast network, external network, is really being tapped into yet. We'll see.
But let me tell you this. In OK Brechterfield, what connection does an OK Brechterfield have to Utah football, to football in the state of Utah? Almost none, right? This is a guy who was on Kalen DeBoer's staff at Washington, coached all-conference players in back-to-back-to-back Pac-12 seasons. One of those was a trip to the national championship game. He's an Oregon State guy, played at Oregon State, was an all-Pac-10 performer at Oregon State, and actually had been hired back at his alma mater where he was first a volunteer coach, then he was a GA, and then he's been all over the place, coaching all over the land, right? Weber State, Montana, UCLA, Pittsburgh, Wisconsin, Vanderbilt, Washington, most recently at Baylor. 3 weeks ago, hired by his own alma mater, Oregon State. Gets a phone call from Morgan Scalley, and unfortunately, Oregon State has been demoted to Group of Five status. And Morgan Scalley can say, hey, you want to be a D-line coach at the University of Utah? A defensive ends coach, I should say, at the University of Utah? And he's like, yeah. Yes, I do. Now, this is a guy, again, that aside from a 2009 singular year stint at Weber State University, doesn't have a lot of natural, like, intuitive, oh, of course I know Morgan Scalley, we're best friends. And
that was pre-Jay Hill even, right? So
that would have been Ron McBride's final year, I think.
So I guess he's got the relation. He has to have some kind of relationship with Ron McBride, which of course ties him to Utah a little bit. But that's 1 year. That's not. Yeah, you're right. That is a great example of what we're talking about. How he might have that. He probably has that because of his networking he's done working in the Pac-12.
Yeah. Okay. So Coach Mack was there till 2011. So look, I could see this, and we'll ask Morgan. We'll talk to Coach Mack maybe. I could see this being a situation, right? We all saw the reports over the weekend that it looked like another Utah man was coming back home, that Jason Kaufusi was going to be the defensive ends coach, and then those negotiations hit a snag, right? Well, you don't have a ton of time with the transfer portal being what it is. You got to have a full staff. You got to be able to tell players at a very, very important position in this Utah defense who their coach is going to be. I could see a scenario in which Morgan Scalley picks up the phone and says, Coach Mack, you're my guy. You recruited me. You coached me. Who's the best defensive end coach I can get that's not Jason Kaufusi? Lewis Powell is gone. He would be choice number one. Jason Kaufusi, an easy choice number two for a lot of people here, especially because we are familiar. We know him, right? Coach Mack, who else? Who else could I talk to? And if Ron McBride says, hey, I really was impressed with this Brechterfield guy in the 1 year I was able to keep him at Weber State, absolutely you make that phone call if you're Morgan Scalley. So we'll see how it works. He knows Mark Ottawaya, this Brechterfield guy does as well.
By the way, huge retention to keep Mark Ottawaya on staff.
It's a big deal.
Like, he was Jason Beck's guy. He came here because Jason Beck was here.
Be fair, to be fully transparent, I think that the more likely scenario is that Mark Ottawaya was probably like, hey, man, I'm back here in Utah.
He wants to get back to Utah. Okay.
I got a lot of family here in Utah, and Kyle Whittingham was going to keep at least a couple of coaches on that Michigan staff. So I could see that they were like, all right, well,
yeah, okay.
If you're not overly enthusiastic about going to Michigan, let's talk about whether Morgan would keep you or not. And look,
but it's still huge to retain him because Wayshawn Parker probably goes wherever Mark Ottawaya goes.
And it's
right.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful thing to have a player that talented be able to say, I want to stay with this coach. And we don't know what Daniel Bray's future is going to be. Again, I was kind of expecting, James, more announcements already when the transfer portal opened, because Utah had a hell of a season. This was not a 7-5 Utah team or a 5-7 Utah team that had maybe one guy decorated all conference and stuff. People were watching Utah football. There's a lot of really good players who have eligibility left. There's a lot of young players with massive, massive upsides. Now, what encourages me is that Morgan Scalley would have been a very profound part of the recruiting picture for most of those guys. And even though things didn't work out the way that we thought they would at the end with Kyle Whittingham, there's not a lot of differentiation between, hey, Morgan Scalley is going to be your head coach at some point during your career because I'm retiring, and Morgan Scalley is going to be your head coach at some point during your career because I'm gone to Michigan. The differentiation there is maybe now you get an offer from Michigan. Hey, do you want to transfer to Michigan? But Morgan has been in the room with these parents, these players, saying, I'm going to be your head coach your junior and senior year probably, your sophomore, junior, senior year probably. So you got to be comfortable with me also. A lot of these guys committed to play for Morgan just as much as they committed to play for Kyle Whittingham. Now you get into this game, this aggressive, did I hire the right person to be the offensive coordinator? If you thought that you wanted to be here with Coach Beck, do you want to be here with Kevin McGivern? McGivern's on the phone right now, securing all those players, making sure that Bird and Dev are comfortable with him, making sure that the next crop of guys have some sense of what he wants to do. Utah State last year was 35th in scoring offense in the country. New Mexico in 2024 was 23rd in scoring offense in the country. New Mexico was about 33 points a game. Utah State was just under 31 points a game. And I can tell you, we watched some of those games, right? They had a really good wide receiver. They had Bryson Barnes, who's a tough SOB quarterback with some talent.
Probably had his best year as a college quarterback last year too.
And I you won't find a bigger fan of Bryson Barnes than me on the planet. But Bryson Barnes ain't Devin Dampier.
Yeah.
And he's not Bert Ficklin either. If you can get 31 points out of an offense run by Bryson Barnes, all respect to him, I think you can do even better at the University of Utah. That's the idea.
Stands to reason, yeah. The other thing, going back to roster retention, watching that Vegas Bowl, OC, I don't know if you had the same impression that I had. Devin looked like over the moon first to be healthy, but I think close second was probably to play for Morgan Scalley. He looked excited. The way he led the celebration on the sideline as the clock's ticking down. He went up to him, patted him on the back. He looked excited to play for Morgan Scalley. JJ Buchanan in his post-game interview, the only thing that he had to say was how excited he is to play for Morgan Scalley. I was taken aback at guys like that who, and we'll see what happens with Devin. He hasn't made an announcement yet. I'm with you right now. No news is good news, but still time. But if he stays, J.J. Buchanan sounded like a guy who, even though he came in excited about Jason Beck's offense, he sounded like a guy who was more excited to play for Morgan Scalley. And I think that I was taken aback at how many of those guys, watching them during the game, listening to them in the post-game interviews, just how well, I guess, Morgan was able to make that impression to these young guys that we were all very concerned about. Hey, is that young guy, talented guy, going to leave? I'm feeling like feels like they're probably going to stay, even though their offensive coordinator, who made them look awesome this year, followed Kyle to Michigan of all places. So
I'll say this though: there's not a player on that roster, including J.J. Buchanan, even Devin Dampier, right, who's been attached at the hip with Jason Beck. There's not a player on that roster who thinks that they were good because of Jason Beck.
That's true. They've got the all world confidence that, hey, I'm good because I'm me.
When you're 19, 20, 21 years old and you're as good as these guys are, I was 19, 20, 21 years old and not anywhere near as good as these guys are. And you're thinking of you are the reason, right?
Yeah, you still felt like
my hard work, my talent, my toughness. That's why I can catch these touchdown passes. That's why I can make that block. That's why I can make that tackle. Yes, I appreciate my coaches for putting me in a really good situation, but he ain't playing. It's me, right? And if you're Kevin McGivern, that's half your recruiting pitch. Hey, I love what Coach Beck was able to do, but Coach Beck ain't the reason why you're one of the best freshmen in the country, J.J. Buchanan. Hey, Daniel Bray, he really found some nice little things for you to do. It wouldn't have taken me 6 games into the year before I found those things. Hey, Wayshawn, you became the bell cow back final 5 games of the year. All respect to the guys who were here before me, but I know now that you're the bell cow back snap number 1. You're a 2,000-yard rusher next year for me.
Walking into spring football. I was going to say walking into fall camp. Walking into spring football, you're going to be bell cow back. Yeah.
And look, I'm oversimplifying, obviously, but these are the things, right? You're recruiting your own roster and you're recruiting people in the transfer portal, and you're doing all of those things by just saying, hey, I was able to do this at Utah State with guys that are not anywhere near as good as you. Or in the case of the pagan kid, you're saying, imagine what I can do with you when we have a slightly better offensive line, better weapons around you, and a better quarterback, because you already had a really good year up in Logan. What could we do in Salt Lake? The tough thing is you're up against all of it. And apparently you're up against $1 million offer from bleeping Rutgers. How are they able to do it?
I mean, same guys bringing in Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper are putting their money towards the football team, I guess. I don't know.
91-97. I'm feeling uncertain but optimistic, and then continues to go on. Correct. Uncertain but optimistic is the exact right way to feel, because we are uncertain about what this is going to be. How do I feel about Morgan Scalley as the head coach? Optimistic. Uncertain, though, because we just don't know. And it's important and it's acceptable to acknowledge that you just don't fully know. We think we do, but we're not 100% sure. There are 3,000 football players in the transfer portal right now, ladies and gentlemen. That's almost 1/3 of all the players in Division I football are in the transfer portal. We are definitely uncertain as to what everything is going to look like when you get to spring football and then next fall. And that's okay to say. But optimistic is probably more important to be. Take a quick one here. Ari Temkin's going to join us on the other side. We'll talk all things college football, including this massive rush to the transfer portal. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. Welcome in our good friend Ari Temkin, Big 12 Today on TuneIn Radio. Ari, welcome again. How are you, sir?
I'm great, OC. How are you, buddy?
Doing all right. Are you in the transfer portal? You're not in the transfer portal, are you?
Not yet. No, not yet, but it's enticing, man.
There are 3,000 plus football players in the transfer portal right now. I know that you can't unring this bell or close Pandora's box, but this number in this single window, is it an alarming thing? Is it something that we need to fix or figure out, or is it just something we should accept?
It's a great question. I mean, I think there's a couple of ways to look at this. Number one, it's all right from our perspective. Like, how much does it bother us as fans or analysts of these teams? And I think it's difficult to track players from a fan's perspective when, rosters every year change hands seemingly. And then, I'm like, what's the impetus for any sort of, changing or jumping in? Like, are we looking out for the goodwill of the student athletes? Is that something that matters to us? Probably not as much as our fandom and, having players that are going to be consistently on our teams. I think like the biggest thing I have is you would think that the players would have some semblance of the context associated with it, meaning, we now have enough of a sample to know that there's not enough spots for all of these guys. So, it makes sense then that some of these guys would make decisions based on, hey, there's a decent chance that if you enter the portal, you're actually going to end up in a worse situation. And, maybe it's going to take a larger sample over a longer period of time in order for some of these guys to get that. But, I think that's like the biggest piece here is there's a lot of data that suggests that there's not 3,000 spots available. And, some of those numbers are going to be from FCS or Division II, or Division II players that are probably not going to get a crack anyways. But the numbers that I've dug into further every year is how many of those guys are actually Power 4 guys and how many of them either, improve their status, meaning get to, stay at a Power 4 school and then end up with greater playing time, which is what a lot of them want. And I think that's where some of the education is really important that, look, you enter the portal, you may not get a better situation. You may end up in a worse situation. And the way I define better or worse situation might be completely different than those athletes themselves. But I think from a fan's perspective, it sucks because it's hard to become accustomed to these players when, they're so transient. There used to be a connection that we had to players, and that's seemingly gone.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, we had a guy, Smith Snowden, who you watched all year, right? He sat down on live with us at the Utah bookstore 5 weeks ago and was like, yeah, I'm a Utah man for life. And now he's in the transfer portal, and a lot of reports indicating that it's down to BYU or Oregon for him. So not a Utah man for life. And honestly, I don't begrudge it because I'm sure when we had that conversation, he fully meant it. But this is the situation we're in now where, especially when there's a coaching change, players feel it's almost necessary to explore the options. And we collectively have set this up in a way that there's nothing to discourage it. So why not?
Right. And I mean, honestly, I'm surprised you said BYU and Oregon. As soon as I saw Smith Snowden put his name in the transfer portal, I figured the name would be Michigan. And honestly, that I would think as a Utah fan, you might feel a little bit better about that if he did go to Michigan, because then at least it makes more sense. And we could say, well, yeah, he said he was a Utah guy, but, he wanted to follow his guy and Kyle Whittingham, so it makes more sense. It seems like, OC, the issue is in making these declarative statements, and coaches are a little bit more tuned to the media than the players are. But if you're a player, you probably just shouldn't make these declarative statements. As good as they sound, it ends up being a situation in which nobody feels good after the fact when you make statements like that. And, so I think on the one hand, like, Smith probably meant it when he said it, but unfortunately fans hear what they want to hear. And if you say that, like, it's just tough to walk it back. And again, I figured as soon as I saw Smith Snowden's name in the portal, he was going to Michigan.
Well, I think they're still in play, certainly, but even Michigan probably doesn't want to pay what Oregon seems to be willing to pay. We'll see, right? and Smith's dad, I think you're aware, Smith's dad was a BYU guy. So at the end of the day, right, the transfer portal has been a net positive for the University of Utah since before we called it the transfer portal, and certainly even since, because Kyle Whittingham and that culture and the constant sort of success, I think, was appealing to players, especially players who were looking for a little stability in a career that maybe wasn't going the way that they wanted to see it go. Now you're Morgan Scalley, and you're trying to say, hey, we're going to preserve a lot of that culture. We're going to do things, but you're also doing it my way now instead of just the Kyle Whittingham way. How do you walk that line if you're Morgan Scalley to where you're still as appealing as the program was before Kyle Whittingham left, but in a different way?
Well, and amazingly, I know a lot of Utah fans are, a little perturbed about some of these assistants leaving and heading to Michigan. But in some ways, there's a net positive here with Jay Hill leaving their rival as the defensive coordinator and taking over the defense at Michigan. So, it's got to be interesting from the Utah fans' perspective, because I know that some were upset about some of the coaches leaving, but at the very, it also impacted BYU. I'm sure Cougar fans are like, wait, what? How did this impact us now? and in a dramatic way, because we know how good Jay Hill's been, for BYU. And it's, obviously we understand that it's there's so much in-house for Utah and BYU that are interconnected. So it makes sense that there'd be some ways in which it would impact them. But, I think this was going to be a pretty smooth transition. A big part of it was, hey, we don't want some of these assistant coaches to have to lose jobs or move. And, that's one of the advantages of having Morgan Scalley, who's in-house. And, now it's like he's going to have to redo the whole thing, in his own image. And so I think in some ways that's good. In some ways he's not taking over Kyle Whittingham's program now. He's got his own stamp on it. And I think, look, Morgan's got to do his own thing. He can't just rely on this is how we've done things and this is how we've been successful at Utah, maybe the way that people expected it to go. Now he's got to put his own stamp because it's a completely different set of circumstances than we all anticipated. I don't think anybody thought, when Scalley was named the head coach in waiting, that he'd take over at the same time with Kyle Whittingham taking over at Michigan and the circumstances surrounding this. So, Morgan's got to do his own thing. I think too many times coaches that come from a tree try to do it the exact same way as the other guy, and you're not. You're not Kyle Whittingham. You might have similarities and might have personality-wise be similar, but I don't think you could replicate what's been done. I think you got to do your own thing in your own way and not try to duplicate the same processes that were already done.
All right, Timkins, our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking all things right now. Utah football, let's focus on the Big 12 a little bit. I guess I shouldn't have doubted it. I don't know if I ever did doubt it, but I still am not used to Indiana being Indiana, right? And then I saw what they were able to secure in terms of early commitments just from this transfer portal class. I was like, oh, yep, Indiana's not going anywhere. And I think the same is absolutely true of Cody Campbell and Texas Tech, as they have reportedly locked down the number one free agent in college football in Brendan Sorsby for a number that's reported to be about $5 million. What do you think of the former Cincinnati quarterback going to Texas Tech?
Yeah, not only that, but it's almost as if they went through James Blanchard, Joey McGuire went through the all Big 12 teams and just started picking off players they wanted, including Austin Romaine. Looks like they're going to add him from Kansas State. They also added Trey White, a pass rusher from San Diego State, who has like 29 and a half tackles for loss over the last 2 seasons and 19 sacks over the last 2 seasons. So, yeah, they've reloaded, and they've certainly improved on the offensive side of the football, which was their major issue in that game on Friday. Thursday. My days of the week are all messed up with this. I keep wanting to say Saturday, and it's clearly not. But and going back to a question you said before about how should we feel about the portal? The reality here, OC, is nobody's happy right now, and we all know the solution. It's right in front of us. It's just whether or not they want to move forward with it, which is collective bargaining. But that's the only way this thing gets fixed. And in terms of getting fixed, like, you need guys on legitimate contracts that they're going to honor that mean multiple seasons, as opposed to this perpetual free agency that we have. The only way to fix that is through collective bargaining. And everybody knows that. It's just they're trying to figure out a way to do it without collectively bargaining. And the reality is collective bargaining wouldn't be great for the athletes themselves, because they're able to re-up every year. And so they'd have to be, tied to contracts and everything else. So, that's the ultimate fix. And we'll see at what point college football is ready to take that plunge. But yeah, look, Tech was a dominant defense all year. I think the one thing that maybe we overlooked heading into this Orange Bowl game against Oregon was, how much their defense was able to aid their offensive success. And, I was surprised by how bad Baron Morton was in this game. And it was just a combination of, Morton not playing well and not seeing the field well, and Oregon's defense just doing some stuff to him that he had not seen before. And it sort of was one of those things watching the game. And, I was at the Orange Bowl. It was a fun game to be at, except for when the game kicked off, because it was just brutal from a Big 12 perspective, because, this is, fair or unfair, a huge measuring stick for this conference. And to lay a goose egg in that game, again, as well as your defense played, just the offense completely no-showed and really gave Texas Tech no chance to win. So, Sorsby will be a dramatic upgrade at the quarterback position. The question is, this defense was dominant, and David Bailey's a top 10 pick, and they're adding some talent in the portal. There's no doubt about that, but enough to make them an elite defense like they've been, we'll see.
Yeah, that was going to be the question. How sustainable is it, right? It felt like defensively there was some magic, and you can't bring all of these guys back, but maybe I'm not giving this coaching staff enough credit, because most of these guys were only together for this year, and they were able to put all that together.
Right. And look, Indiana's doing it too. And Texas Tech, at least in this recruiting class, recruiting at a higher level than Indiana is right now. But I mean, Indiana, what they're doing is unprecedented. I mean, they had the year last year where they put together a great season, but didn't really beat anybody, and then lost, in the playoff to Notre Dame in a game that they weren't even close in. And now this year, they're the favorites to win it all with the same quarterback from last year who transferred in and a bunch of new transfers. So, it all goes back, of course, to the blue chip ratio piece, which we've talked a lot about too. And that is, Indiana and Ole Miss are two teams that are in it in the Final Four. They're not blue chip ratio teams. And Indiana's been built in a way that you just don't see traditional national champs in college football built. So, this is a really good litmus test for, like, can the Big 12 have a team that can win a national title? Because in the era of the blue chip ratio, in which no team has won a national championship, having less than 50% of the roster, be 4 or 5-star recruits, then, it kind of goes out the window. But I think if you see Indiana do it, then there's this belief that, like, it is sustainable. It is something you can build a national championship team with.
What do you make of the Sam Leavitt situation? He's going to Kentucky, it sounds like.
Yeah, it feels like Arizona State and Kentucky just made a trade for the quarterback.
That's right.
Kentucky's quarterback goes to Arizona State, I would imagine, for significantly cheaper than the north of $5 million that Sam Leavitt's going to get. Look, I wish Sam Leavitt well. I know that there was some smoke around Leavitt to Texas Tech. From what I've heard, there was no interest whatsoever there. Just kind of a personality mismatch. Leavitt obviously has the connection with Will Stein, going back to his time being recruited at Oregon by Kenny Dillingham and Will Stein. So, but look, really good quarterback. I think he's going to immediately raise the expectations for Kentucky. It's a lot of money to spend on one player.
Did Kenny Dillingham cut Sam Leavitt? I spent some time in the ASU conspiracy circles, and there's this apocryphal story about maybe he was playing pickup basketball and rolled an ankle, and that upset his teammates and his coaching staff to the point where this divorce ended up happening. What have you heard, or do you hear anything about that?
I mean, there's a lot of smoke around the end of the Sam Leavitt era in Arizona State, and yeah, I mean, I do think, look, Leavitt is a different cat. He's obviously got an ego on a level that he wanted to go out to the open market and see what was out there for him, and he's cashed it in a big way. I think if we just kept this to a dollars and cents conversation, Arizona State at some point did the arithmetic and figured out that it was just not going to be worth it, because they had more money they needed to spend in different areas of their team in order to become championship caliber, and they didn't feel like investing $5 to $7 million in Sam was worth it. And I think if all those other things are there too, are you investing $5 million plus into this guy? And again, I think it's somewhere north of 5 and south of 7. So I think he ended up getting more than Sorsby. We'll see, if the numbers come out publicly. But I think, OC, if those things are there off the field and there's concerns, are you paying him $5 million? Probably not. So
no chance. Yeah.
It's like he had to check a lot of boxes and he probably didn't. And so it's not worth, can we get an offensive line? No, not if we're paying Sam Leavitt $5 million.
Can the Big 12 keep Raleek Brown in the conference?
Well, and that's where it goes to the, if you did spend $5 million on Sam Leavitt, how much do you now have to spend on other players? It's obvious that Arizona State knows what they're doing in terms of, recruiting and scouting running backs. So he had a great year, obviously, but I also wonder if they feel like, hey, we could go and – I mean, it's sort of like the NFL where you might have a 1,000-yard back, but you may also look and say, do we pay him X or go into the draft and find a guy that can become a Jacoby Krosky-Merritt or Kyle Monangai for the Bears, these guys that are having really good rookie seasons that were late draft picks that are making not much money. And you wonder if you're Kenny Dillingham and you feel like you're good enough at the quarterback position, you're good enough on your offensive line, do you have to spend the money? I mean, I think it's like the NFL in that you've got to really put a premium on the premium positions. You want to invest heavily at quarterback, defensive end, offensive line. I don't know that running back's going to be where I'm going to invest heavily, even though I do have a guy in Brown who was really, really good last year.
All right, it's January 5th. We've got, 10 days of transfer portal left, and a college football playoff still to figure out. Handicap for me, the Ari Temkin, top teams in the Big 12 for 2026.
Yeah, that's a great question, man. Is Devin Dampier back in Utah?
Wait, conspicuously absent any announcements or information on that.
Yeah, right.
And look, there was a lot of conversation that Arizona State was coming hard after Devin Dampier, and then this weekend we get an announcement that they've secured a Kentucky quarterback. So, I mean, I don't think he's going to Michigan. Doesn't seem like that's in the cards.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So, I mean, if Devin Dampier's back at Utah, they're in the conversation. I mean, I think you're looking at probably the same teams we talked about at the end of the year. BYU year 2 with Barrett Bachmeier. Even with Jay Hill gone, I expect them to be really good on defense again, and they might not need to be as good as they've been because their quarterback situation, I think, will be really good going into year 2 with Bear. I mean, Texas Tech's obviously the favorite. Just based on their ability to acquire talent and then their ability to put that on the field. And, look, we saw Sorsby look really good, but he has the last 2 seasons sort of crumbled at the end of the season. So you wonder, is that Scott Satterfield related? Is it, related to just the roster that Cincinnati's had? That remains to be seen. But I think you can certainly start with the 3 best teams from last year. I don't see any reason why either of those would take a step back. And then, look, I mean, Oklahoma State adding Drew Mestemaker, who was Eric Morris's quarterback in North Texas. Just look at Eric Morris's history. Like, even bad quarterbacks have career years under him, and Mestemaker looks like a legit, starting quarterback, QB1. Kansas brought Andy Kotelnicki back. Kansas has not had a ton of success since Kotelnicki left and went to Penn State. So, can that help improve their offense? So I think there's, some other potential surprises as we move along throughout this offseason to see who else could be in that conversation. But I certainly start with the 3 teams that ended the season, towards the top of the Big 12.
Well, there's no such thing as a football offseason anymore, but I'm excited to keep talking through basketball and all that with you, my friend.
You're the best, OC. Take care, brother.
Ari Temkin on TuneIn Radio. You can find him on Big 12 today. Plenty to talk about in this conference. And, yes, we touched on some of it there. The top free agents in the Big 12 conference. And, guys, maybe that you could see come back to the Big 12 conference, including a very conspicuous former Ute who's expected to put his name in the transfer portal. We'll discuss that next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. 877-353-0700. Do you want Cam Calhoun back, Utah football fans? Cam Calhoun transferred to Alabama late in the cycle last year, post-spring ball, and did not have a great year for the Crimson Tide. In fact, the most notable thing that happened with Cam Calhoun at Alabama is he was ejected for targeting in the Iron Bowl. Played sparingly, special teamer, et cetera, et cetera. It didn't work out, so he's in the transfer portal. And I immediately saw a bunch of people, oh, come on back. Come on back. Now, I want to know how long the memory is for coaches when it comes to this, because undoubtedly Cam Calhoun is a talented player. I will not ever say anything otherwise. I don't think Cam Calhoun is good as you probably think Cam Calhoun is good. All right? I also had some really interesting conversations last year after Utah, quote-unquote, lost him into the transfer portal that seemed to be really outside what the narrative was. That Utah just wasn't paying enough, and so Cam Calhoun was going to go to a place like Alabama where he could make more money. And you got to be careful when you're feeling like your sources come from inside the program, because the program's always going to try to protect itself. And sometimes we've seen it in college sports, in pro sports, where media members are used as a mouthpiece for the program to disseminate some kind of message, right? And that's why people who don't usually want to talk to you suddenly will want to talk to you about one particular story because they're doing some damage control, putting out a fire, whatever. I didn't get that feeling, but it was one of those stories where there was a lot of he said, she said going on with Cam Calhoun and Utah's split in particular. That maybe, and you see this now, and you know this happens. We saw it. The highest profile situation was the Nico Iamaleava situation with Tennessee transferring to UCLA, where a guy who's got a deal, right, signed a long-term contract with Tennessee, then he comes back and he just says, actually, I want more money than that. And the school is just like, what are you talking about, man? You just signed this. I was told that's what happened with Cam Calhoun. And Cam Calhoun made an agreement with the University of Utah. You saw the social media announcement, a Utah man am I thing, whatever. And then it was, oh, just kidding. I want more. And the coaching staff, again, this is what I was told. People in the program were like, we're not going to be held, we don't negotiate with terrorists, okay? We're not going to be held hostage even by a guy who's this talented. And so they were just like, all right, man. You can play for us on this deal, or if you really want to, you can go somewhere else. And if Cam Calhoun comes back, we'll ask him whether it worked out for him. But I was even told that what he ended up taking at Alabama was less than what he was going to make at the University of Utah. And that, to me, feels a lot less important even than the fact that the year you had, you just sacrificed a year of your college football eligibility to be a dude on a Crimson Tide team that obviously had a better year than Utah did. They ended up being, slightly better. But you weren't the reason for that. You weren't a big part of that. And we get so wrapped up in these contracts, these NIL deals, this money, that it's easy to forget that if you're not playing, if you're not furthering your development, if you're not – Cam Calhoun's a guy who wants to play in the NFL and has the athleticism that he'll probably at least get a chance to play in the NFL. A guy like that doesn't have time to waste and cannot look at this year where he said, yeah, I would rather be at Alabama. Oh, wait. I had 7 tackles this year at Alabama. I played 13% of the defensive snaps and played mostly on special teams. And the biggest thing on tape that I put out there was a targeting. It was actually a really nice hit, but you just did it with the crown of the helmet to the side of a guy's head. Like, you can find ways to get money. You can't get time back, right? So this is, I think, is an example of one of those really hard-learned lessons that the transfer portal we're not going to see highlighted. James, maybe this is how you and I become multimillionaires. Maybe we create a series for Netflix like the cautionary tales of the transfer portal, where we go and we actually highlight these things. Hey,
you get the Westwood One voice guy. It's the cautionary tales of the transfer portal.
I feel like that's what this is. And now I want to know, if you're Utah, are you saying, come on back, Cam Calhoun? And I'm not talking about Utah fans. All of you are saying yes.
Yeah.
I'm talking about if you're Morgan Scalley, if you're Sharif Shaw, and Sharif Shaw has a connection with these guys, and Sharif Shaw is a better human being than pretty much all of us. So he probably is just like, you're a young man. You made a mistake. No big deal. Come on back. Big Brother's going to take care of you. We'll make sure we get you a little bit of money. We'll get you on the field. I'm going to develop you, and I'm going to turn you into an NFL corner. Let's do this thing. Like
I could see that happening, yeah.
I imagine Sharif Shaw is all on board with something like that. But I don't know. If you're all in or in the way and you decide, no, just kidding. I know I told you I'd play for whatever it was, $300,000, but I want $5,000. And then so the program had to be like, oh, man. Is that coloring far enough outside the lines of family and team culture that now you got to burn that bridge? I don't think so. But it's one of those things where, man, do you want Cam Calhoun back just because he's talented? I mean, it's hard to find great corners. By the way, he could have sealed the BYU victory for you last year after the penalty if he had just not let an interception slip through. Both hands touched the ball.
Yeah, it was, man, so close to making that game turning out the way that you wanted it to, Utah fans, even after the controversial.
By the way, revisionist history is a poisonous fruit, so I shouldn't even say this. That would have been, James, the loudest, craziest moment potentially in the history of Rice-Eccles Stadium.
You think so?
If he had pulled down that interception to seal that game and win it after every fan in the place had booed so lustily at the referees, it was just so lathered up, so angry, so mad that drive was continuing. If them Cam Calhoun just shuts that thing down 2 plays later with an interception, the roof that doesn't even exist would have blown off the place.
Yeah, the proverbial roof would have blown off the place.
But he didn't. And I'll never forgive him for it.
Louder than – so here's the list that I keep hearing from people who followed the program a lot longer than I have, and people like you who were part of the program. The moments that were the loudest in Rice-Eccles Stadium history, maybe during the Kyle Whittingham era. The Burton block, Britton Covey's punt return.
Yes. Jason
Shelley's touchdown in the 2018 comeback against BYU, and Cam Rising's 2-point conversion against USC.
That's the one. That's the loudest one.
That's the loudest one. Okay, those are the 4 that I always hear bandied about when we talk about what's the loudest Rice-Eccles Stadium's ever been. It's been those 4. So you say Cam.
Also, Devin Dampier against.
You think Cam Calhoun would have beat out Cam?
When Devin took that keeper, whatever it was, 54 yards down to the goal line.
Even
with Kansas State game,
even with a lot less people in there because they left early, it was pretty loud, right?
So I will say this about the Cam Rising touchdown and 2-point conversion, James. I was down there on the sideline in the end zone, right?
Were you close to Porter? Because Porter says his mic flag broke because he ran into him.
I was close to Porter. I wasn't next to him, but I was in that same vicinity.
Yeah, okay.
I think I was standing next to Bartle, he who shall not be named.
Love you, Bartle.
Love you, Bartle. You're not Voldemort on this show, I promise.
Bartlemort.
You know how you when you're watching a crazy game like that on television, the camera will shake from the sound. The stadium will actually physically shake, so the picture will get a little bit funky.
Yeah.
Because the kick 6, Auburn, Alabama, whatever, like it gets so crazy loud that it's just like it affects the actual technology. I was looking through my own eyeballs. I was standing there on the sideline, James, in that end zone, watching it happen, and that same effect was going on. It's like the sound waves were beating down onto my brain to where I was like, whoa, is it my vision a little bit blurry because of this? It was the sound was a physical thing. It was not just a moment that you could hear. It was like a thing you could feel. It's like standing in front of the subwoofer at a concert where it's just boom, boom, boom. You can feel it in your chest. It rattles the back of your teeth. It was exactly like that, to where if you were standing down there, it was shaking your brain, something.
You felt some of that vibration.
That's
wild. Crazy. By the way, hopefully everyone enjoyed re-listening to that as we honored Kyle Whittingham. I know some of you don't want to honor Kyle Whittingham anymore, but we still have fond memories of his 21 years at Utah.
Jordan Aldridge says, loudest was TCU 2008 Freddie Brown touchdown. I actually was not in the building for that one.
Were you not?
No.
Were you still? Wait,
I wasn't there for the Burton block either.
Was that the end of your? Was 08? Were you still at Weber State? Was that your last
06
year?
06 was I was at Weber State.
Okay.
So 08 I was around. 08 I think I was out of town cornering a fight. That week. I think is out where
was 08. When was the beginning of your as you started your fight career?
2007.
2007. Okay, so that was a year or so into your.
Yeah, so my first fight was April of 2007.
Okay.
And I fought 7 times in 2007.
All right.
So I fought like once a month.
So you were invested. You were fully invested into that, trying to make it into this new sport enough where you're like, I'm not going to every home game.
Yeah, I mean I wasn't working in radio yet.
Yeah.
So it was.
That's what you were doing.
That was what I was doing.
08 TCU. That's I failed to mention that one. That is another one. The blackout games, another one everyone talks about. Oh, that 08 blackout game, so good. And it really was an incredible comeback win for them.
877-353-0700. Bounce back players. Look, Nate Johnson came back from Vanderbilt, and everyone was like, oh, cool, Nate Johnson. And I think we rooted for it, and it was cool to see when he did get touches.
Some
and
nice moments.
Put that athleticism on display. It's great. Nate Johnson's departure and Cam Calhoun's departure were a little bit different in my mind. But, again, I fully acknowledge the fact that if I'm getting information that serves the program to disseminate and, I have these feelings because of that, it doesn't mean the fan base feels that way. And even if the team felt that way a year ago, and not even a full year ago, life moves so fast. Now you're just like, hey, man, give me every talented player I can. And look, maybe Cam Calhoun didn't want to play for Kyle Whittingham, but he does want to play for Morgan Scalley.
Right. That I was just going to bring that up. It very well could have been Kyle Whittingham's voice was the loudest in that, no, he's in the way. Get out. And maybe Morgan felt that way too, but maybe not as strongly as Kyle Whittingham. That could have been the case.
We don't know. But that's just one example. There's going to be plenty of guys that either they played for a different team and you hated him because he was on that team, but now he's in the transfer portal. It's like, oh, now I want that guy, right? Or these bounce back players, there's a real possibility. McKay Hillstead, the former Utah State quarterback who transferred to BYU, guess where he's reportedly visiting today? Utah State.
He's like, hold on, Bryson Barnes is gone now. I want to be Broncos' all-time favorite player.
Which I don't know why you need to go visit Logan again if you're McKay Hillstead.
It's just formality. Hey, maybe you
it's
just have to.
I got a free meal out of this.
Yeah, or maybe you just have to call it a visit, even if you're not visiting. You're just like, okay, we'll say just put down January 5th is my visit. Okay,
you go up there. He's like, yep, looks the same.
Oh, I mean, I guess it's a chance to.
Is that a new? They build a new crumble cookie up here? Wow.
I guess it's a chance to have some FaceTime with Bronco, who was not his coach.
That's obviously the big deal, right? You're going and you're having a conversation with a guy that maybe you would have stayed and played for had you known what that situation was going to be, right? You're not talking to Kevin McGivern because he's at the University of Utah now. It moves so fast this time of year. And we are in day 3 of the transfer portal. No Devin Dampier announcement. No Bert Ficklin announcement.
By the way, we have efforted to get one more conversation with Devin. As of Friday, he had said he might have had some time. Unfortunately, we're not able to make it happen. So we've been trying to get his gauge on what he might be doing. Devin, if you're available, please, we'd love to have you on. But just to let everyone know, we have been trying to get Devin on the show, and I assume OC you would have asked him the pointed question, hey, so you staying? And I'm sure he'd have given us some non-answer, but
because he's been masterful at handling that, right?
Yeah.
He's been asked many times now, so do you plan on staying? He's just like, I love wearing red. I'm really enjoying being a Ute. I love this school.
Love Morgan
I love
Scally.
my team. Like, Devin, I will say this. I really do hope Devin Dampier is back at the University of Utah next year. If he's not, I will only wish him well for the remainder of his football career.
Absolutely. Incredible guy.
Classy, really, really great.
And great to work with as we've been arranging these Dishing with Devin interviews. Outstanding. Like, the guys, I mean, and when it comes to this kind of thing, you have to just acquiesce to, hey, guy's busier than I am, all right? And totally fine that we haven't been able to connect that way, but I just wanted to let everyone know. I'm sure there's people wondering, like, hey, how come you guys who have the exclusive with Devin Dampier haven't been able to do it? We've had trouble making it happen.
Let's see. According to Blair Angulo, Smith Snowden will be visiting Colorado. What are you doing, Smith? You're going to go to Colorado? Colorado, BYU, Michigan, Georgia, and Oregon, all planned.
That's quite the list of blue bloods, Colorado aside.
Here's the thing. I love this. When there's that Sesame Street game, one of these things is not like the other. Colorado doesn't belong anywhere near that list. Now, it would be great if you're a corner to go play for Coach Prime. Just do a clinic, though. You don't want to be stuck in Boulder for a whole season.
Winning 3 to 5 games. Woo!
That is
while your former team might just be competing for a Big 12 title, if not winning it again next year.
A lot of people saying that Michigan's the most likely landing spot. I think that Oregon is really, really in play for Smith Snowden. BYU feels like they've got a shot.
Absolutely. I mean, last week, what did I say? He's gonna. That's got to be a strong pull for him if BYU shows interest, which you knew they were going to, given that he would be a legacy for the Cougars.
Has Kalani hired a defensive coordinator yet?
Not that I've seen.
Sean O'Connell Show continues. We're way over time. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Transfer portal open. Coaching staff filled out. The college football calendar doesn't really slow down anymore in the offseason. The offseason that for Utah will be one of the most uncertain and interesting in recent memory as Morgan Scalley has taken over head coaching position. We have, by the way, we've put in our official request to catch up with Morgan Scalley. Hopefully we get the first interview with him. Hopefully we get him sooner than later. I will say I want him doing what he's doing right now. And I want him, as much as I want him to come on the show, I want him to be managing his roster and seeing what he can retain and what the situation is going to be like. Because I said it last week. We were talking about the offensive coordinator spot in particular. You don't find coaches in college football or in NFL football, for that matter, who are actually truly able to overcome roster deficits. Like not in a significant way. There are coaches, better coaches, who when you have a little bit of an injury situation or maybe one particular position group in one particular year is not stellar, or as has been the case at the University of Utah, I hate to say it, historically, we got to say historically now because it's been 20 years, 20-plus years, you don't really have the same wide receivers as other programs have. You can sometimes overcome that, but what you're not going to find, and we saw stark evidence of this in the 2024 season, doesn't matter how good you are as a coach. It really doesn't if you don't have the horses, if you don't have the players, right? The trainer and the jockey in the Kentucky Derby matter, but they don't matter as much as the horse does. And that is true in college football as well, which is why you don't like to see talented guys like Smith Snowden off in the transfer portal doing this publicity tour and visiting Colorado, BYU, Georgia, Oregon. I mean, good for him. I want him to get paid. He was already getting paid at the University of Utah. You want to see kids be successful. You want to have good young men end up with a nice little nest egg to head out into the world. I bear no ill will for Smith Snowden if he ends up anywhere.
Even at BYU, OC?
I don't want to see him end up at BYU. Let's be honest.
I don't think the fan base will share that sentiment with you if he ends up at his dad's alma mater.
I mean, you know what's really interesting is there's a certain vocal minority of this fan base who I think now hates Michigan more than they hate BYU.
They might hate Kyle Whittingham more than they hate BYU. That's
what I mean.
Did you see some of the stuff online? I'm like, goodness gracious, guys.
There I don't know. I would like to know. I wish we could do a poll, James. Maybe you could help me construct one to get the actual number of Utah fans who are just like all the way off the Kyle Whittingham bandwagon. They actually hate him now.
Hey, he's not all in at Utah anymore, so he is in the way.
I get it. Like, this is the world of college football. Spence has his show started on Friday. He did a good job of kind of articulating and laying it out. He's just like, we have been so protected from this that people don't know how to handle it. Whereas like the Utah State fans of the world, they sit back and they're just like, oh, Utah fans, first time?
Yeah. OC.
First time that you've seen your successful coaches take other jobs and pillage the program on the way out the door?
Maybe go somewhere in state even.
You don't like that? You don't know what it feels like? This is every year for us.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the group of five non-BCS mindset that we're currently in up in Aggie land. The Aggie fans aside, and specifically in college athletics, OC, men's basketball in particular, and college football, I would argue, and maybe Spence may have touched on this on his show on Friday even, I would argue that sports fans in Utah, no matter what your favorite team is, especially outside of college athletics, have been insulated from this. You think about the Utah Jazz. Since they've been in Utah, 1980, 5 coaches? And every one, it seems like there's a couple of exceptions, but it seemed like every one of them was the head coach for at least 8 years, right? That doesn't happen anywhere else in the NBA. You think about Lavelle Edwards' stint at BYU. You think about Kyle Whittingham's stint that just ended here at the University of Utah. I mean, there's so, I mean, RSL's had head coaching changes a lot. The hockey teams knew, but we keep our own here, unlike anywhere else in the country.
I think that might be. So my wife, she's on this kick where she's like, you talking about me. She's like, you hate change. I'm like, what do you mean I hate change?
I'm from Utah. We don't change.
I don't hate change. I'm fine with change. She's like, no, you hate change, man.
I left
you don't like it.
Left out one, by the way. Kalani's been at BYU for over a decade at this point.
That's right.
Move on.
But that's your point is well made, and I'm just like, no, I'm fine with change. She's like, no, you are not fine with change. Now, in the context of these conversations with my wife, it's like she wants to buy a new couch 2 years after we already bought a new couch, and I'm just like, no, leave it alone. She's like, see, you hate change. But I do kind of hate in the context for sports. I'm like, look, man, leave it alone.
Let it marinate. He had one bad year. Let him try to bounce back.
Like, let's see how this goes. And by the way, there's a reason why the transfer portal is seeing all these guys at like a James Madison, at an Eastern Kentucky, at a North Texas, at an Incarnate Word, and then a Washington State that climb the ladder and end up being the best players in college football, because we should be patient. We're not, but we should be patient. We should allow for development and growth. There was a time in college football, James, and it wasn't all that long ago, where you had never seen the high school athletes that were coming to play for your school. You had never seen them. You didn't know a damn thing about them. They didn't. Their film was not available online. This is when I was in high school. The internet was not robust enough, and your dial-up speed was not worth you sitting in front of your computer for 5 hours to watch Haloti Ngata play football. The reason that you knew who he was, if you were an Oregon fan or a BYU fan, maybe you saw him, or a Utah fan, maybe you saw him. But if you're an Oregon fan or a Nebraska fan, the reason you knew who he was is because your coaches told you he was a good player and said, we're offering this kid a scholarship. So you were like, ooh, I want him. Let me find out more about that guy. Oh, wow, he was a 3-time All-State player at Highland High School, whatever. That's all you knew. It was not that long ago where you had no idea what to expect from freshmen. And the norm in college football at that time, and the many decades before, was that freshmen aren't going to play. They're going to redshirt. You remember when true freshman Adrian Peterson was just dominating everybody?
Heisman finalist, right?
And people were just like, this is a true freshman. We have never seen this. What is going on here?
Adrian Peterson.
Holy cow.
He was something else.
Maurice Claret, same thing. It's like when they were young players who were dominating, and it's like, this is only the 6th time in 115 years that a true freshman has had over 1,000 yards. And you're just like, what? Young guys didn't play. So you didn't know, as a fan base, the patience was a natural thing for you. The redshirt year, you knew nothing about the guy. You were excited about his signing with your school, and then you didn't know anything about him for 2 more years. They're like, oh, look, he made a tackle on special teams. Oh, look, now he's a rotational player. And there were outliers, obviously, the truly special freaks that you got to enjoy from the time they were freshmen. But patience in the college football world has just been this thing that was foisted upon us until the internet ruined it. Until access to high school film and every possible website and every possible article meant that if you're Isaac Wilson, you better show up and you better play exactly how you did at Corner Canyon High School. And all of us expected that. And when it didn't happen, it was just like, oh, this guy sucks. And that's not true. And he's going to transfer somewhere else.
Did we get news about, does he found a landing spot yet?
I don't know. He should go to Weber State and play for Eric Kerr. That's what he should do.
Play for his coach who made him a 4-star recruit.
But these guys that now are kind of like, oh, you're not Adrian Peterson, right? So I'm not even going to recruit you to Oklahoma anymore. Okay? You're a little too skinny. So I'm not even your film is not impressive enough. So I'm going to send you, or I'm going to let somebody from Western Kentucky have you. I'm going to let North Texas get you. And now that the transfer portal exists, you're going to play there, right? You're going to get reps as a true freshman because that's an FBS or excuse me, an FCS school, or that's a group of 5 school, and you're the best thing that they can access there. So you're going to play there. You're going to get reps. You're going to develop. You're going to get better. Oh, look at this. After your sophomore year, now I'm the coach who is already at this cathedral of college football. I've got the NIL funds, and I don't need to be patient because I can just swoop in and steal a product that was developed by somebody else. And maybe I'll be gracious enough to bring that guy along. I'll give him a job and you can follow him. Like, the patience thing is gone in college football, and it's something that we've forgotten because we're like, oh yeah, these guys, transfer portal, Cam Scattaboo, Sacramento State, and then Arizona. It's like Cam Scattaboo should have been, in a regular world, should have been a player at the University of Utah, at Arizona State in the first place, who sat as a freshman and then went maybe a special team guy his sophomore year, and then all of a sudden got the size and the strength and the reps and the opportunity.
Confidence, all that.
And ended up but like, now we just are like, no, transfer portal. What is it? What is it? What is it? What is it? And because of that, a developmental program like the University of Utah finds itself in this really weird place where you made your hay even before Kyle Whittingham was the head coach. When Ron McBride was the head coach, you were the team that identified the 6'5", 215-pound tight end from whatever school, and you brought him in, and 2 years later, you had yourself an All-American candidate at defensive end. Because you had the vision, you had the coaching ability, you had the opportunity. And now those developmental programs have to find a way to be not that. No, we're not a developmental. We want to be, but you're not patient enough as a parent, as a player, as a fan to allow us to be that anymore. So instead what we have to be is we have to be a keep up with the Joneses, spend the NIL money, get these guys out of the transfer portal type program. And it's a really odd place for Utah football to be in. Because Morgan Scalley came up 21 years. He was that guy. Great running back in high school. Unbelievable player. No, we want you to play defense. Oh, I don't know, man. Defense. Ended up being the defensive player of the year in the conference because of the vision of a coaching staff that knew how to develop him. Anyway. College football has changed in a way that the identity of your program, your family culture, we will do more with less. You can still do it, but you have to do it differently, even than Utah football has ever done it. So, again, optimism, certainly, but there is uncertainty here in this era of college football with Morgan Scalley taking over in a place where now you have to, like, in order to keep a guy that you've developed, like Smith Snowden, you have to be able to pay him what Michigan, Oregon, Georgia, and BYU can pay him. And that's not reality for Utah right now. All right, enough of this. Daily Dump is coming next. NFL playoff matchups, coaching carousel at the top level of the sport. I have a question about that for you. We'll get to it in the Daily Dump, brought to you by Valley Plumbing. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Not just plumbing. The truck with the duck can now handle your HVAC needs as well. So if you've got vents that need to be cleaned or checked out, you've got a furnace that's coughing, creating you some problems, Valley Plumbing can take care of that, as well as your plumbing and your drain cleaning. Daily Dump. Myles Garrett sets the single-season sack record, 23rd sack of the year, and it happens against the Bengals. Joe Burrow, it was 2018 Browns, 17-12 at the time of the sack itself. And why are they always so underwhelming? These record-setting sacks, it's never like this beautiful play, big hit, forced fumble. It's like the quarterback's, and just falls down.
Well, I mean, I was just going to ask you this, OC. There are those on the deepest corners of the internet and elsewhere. I heard, is it Kyle Brandt from NFL Network? Does his hit with Scott Van Pelt on SportsCenter.
Yeah.
And he's among these people that got their tinfoil hats on and said he dove on purpose a la Brett Favre. I'm not sure. Like, Brett Favre and Michael Strahan were, like, really close friends. Maybe Joe Burrow and Myles Garrett are. I don't know that there's any reason that Joe Burrow would take a dive. Maybe he did. I don't know.
I don't understand why. I mean, look, Myles was going to get Joe Burrow anyway on this one. It was a very, very underwhelming sack. It was Joe Burrow. Like, it looked like he was going to maybe try to step up into the pocket, and then he altered his decision-making last second and sort of fell back almost into the arms of Myles Garrett. I'm watching it over and over here on the YouTube. At the end of the day, Myles Garrett is going to get that sack.
One of the things feeding that conspiracy theory, OC, that I found out is his post-game comments, Joe Burrow's post-game comments. Did you see these? They asked him what was the protection call on that play, and there are those that are like, Joe Burrow's a savant, and he's it's almost the same way that we talk about a lot of great quarterbacks, but I think of, probably because I'm a basketball guy first, we think of LeBron James being talked about with his photographic memory, and you can ask him about how they played defense on a certain play in the 2011 finals against the Mavs today, and he could break it down for you exactly without looking at the video, right? These people are talking about Joe Burrow in that same way, and how it was very sus to hear him kind of punt on the question and be like, I'm not sure I remember the protection call. So that's feeding into it as well.
Well, look, here's two things. There's a lot of things that are true on this play. Myles Garrett beats his blocker. Whoever is playing left tackle at this moment for the Cincinnati Bengals, and I'm sorry that I don't know. It just an absolutely
make the playoffs and maybe we'll know your name. Jeez.
Just a terrible, terrible effort against Myles Garrett. And
I'm sure friends with Myles Garrett?
I'm sure I would look a lot better pass rushing against this guy than the average person. But also, if Joe Burrow doesn't kind of interrupt his forward motion, like he feels the pressure, looks like maybe he's going to scramble forward, but there's a stunt between the two interior defensive linemen for the Browns, okay? Shelby Harris, I think that's his name, is Shelby Harris is number 93, is coming around in the stunt. He's the second guy. He's the looper in this stunt. Joe Burrow's going to get sacked by him if he doesn't stop and let Myles Garrett kind of catch him from behind. So I don't know that there's a way he avoids a sack. It probably didn't have to be Myles Garrett's sack, I guess, is the only conspiracy. But it's kind of a boring way to get the record because it's effectively a quarterback taking a knee. I want it to be a situation where it's like this guy thinks he's got a man open downfield. He's ready to cock that ball back, and then his whole world explodes and the ball goes flying.
Like a ship, a pirate ship getting hit by a cannonball. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
just the blind side. You're just like, oh, there he is.
Cleats off the ground. Yeah.
I'm going to throw a touchdown pass. And as soon as that ball starts to come, cock back, that's when Myles Garrett, one hand punches the ball, the helmet goes straight into the spine, and the quarterback's just like, just a yard sale.
Spit flying everywhere in slow motion.
Give me one of
Absolutely.
those.
By the way, another ancillary controversy around this. Jamar Chase's post-game comments, and yes, you can take this as just sour grapes, but I think that he has a point to this. He's like, their whole team ran on the field because they stopped play.
Yeah.
That's usually a penalty. And like, why are we stopping the play in Cincinnati? And this is a big rivalry. We don't really recognize it nationally because these two teams have not been good at the same time very often, but there's a big rivalry in Ohio. I can understand him being salty about that, aside from the fact that they lost and they're not in the playoffs. I don't think it should all be dismissed as sour grapes. But yeah, like, if they're in Cleveland, I think that's like, do what you want, Cleveland Browns and refs, stop this game. But I feel like you should at least consult the home team, especially in a heated interdivision rivalry.
Yeah, Zach Taylor, the coach for the Bengals, who's being retained, by the way, despite the vote of no confidence from his players. He said the same thing.
He's salty about it too. Yeah,
like, dude, they stopped the game for 5 minutes.
This is Cincinnati, not Cleveland.
Like we're playing the final few minutes of our season here, and they just stopped the game without telling us why they were stopping the game. That they were going to stop the game. And look, there's precedent for this, where the NFL,
absolutely,
the NBA does it. Where it's just like,
I remember
all right,
the 3-point records being toppled. Ray Allen was the first one I remember taking over Reggie Miller's record. They stopped the game, but that was also in Boston. He was a Celtic. Steph Curry, I think, recently when that happened, same thing happened. So when big-time records take place, LeBron breaking Kareem's scoring record, this is a thing that happens, but usually those happen at home for the player that's going on. Anyway, I did feel like they had a fair point.
They probably do, but it is it's a big time deal. We have made sacks into the second most important stat in football.
Touchdowns and sacks, yeah. Maybe interceptions are close to that too, but no, I don't know.
Here's the thing: you very rarely know who the interceptions leader in the NFL is.
Good point.
You always know who the sack leader in the NFL is.
Good point. Yeah. I think
we have turned sacks into the second most important stat in football, which is so funny because there was a time where they didn't officially track these things. And then it's like somebody woke up and was like, hey, you know what people are excited by? This huge momentum swinging, either demoralizing or energy-inducing play. We should start caring about these. And they were like, yeah, let's track these. And then you've created stars. And now your average sack number, it used to be like $1 million a sack, basically. That's what your contract was going to be. Now we're talking like $3 million a sack.
Yeah, it's 3 times as much. What was Parsons' contract? Almost $50 million?
It's crazy.
And Garrett's around the same thing, yeah.
So Myles Garrett is actually overperforming that, by the way. He's outperforming the general number, because if he was making $3 million a sack, he'd be what, $69 million this year.
Let's wait for the holdout this offseason. Hey, I'm actually outperforming this now. Oh man.
So yeah, it is a single season sack record. Would we have liked to have seen it be done in more impressive fashion? Sure. Would we like to see it happen for a player on a relevant team? That's even more important. The Cleveland Browns. Congratulations, Cleveland. In my lifetime, you have had arguably the best offensive tackle to play in the NFL in my lifetime,
Joe Thomas.
And you've had now arguably the best pass rusher to play. He has to do it for a little bit longer, I suppose, has to sustain this level of contribution and success. And you as a team still stink out loud.
Imagine, because some of that overlapped, right? Maybe his rookie or second year, Joe Thomas was still there.
I think that's right.
But Myles Garrett was not the best pass rusher in the league at that point, but he was still really good. Imagine in theory being able to dominate the line of scrimmage like that, and still, I think that was in the 1-31 stretch, the infamous 1-31 stretch of their season that our guy Nate Orchard was a part of, by the way. Nate, speaking of Myles Garrett, Any chance he's gotten when he's been a guest on our station, either this show or the Drive with Spence Checketts, he has sung the praises of Myles Garrett as that guy's probably the best to ever do it. I mean, and now this year he's doing it. He's putting his name in the record books to say, yeah, maybe I am.
So congratulations to Myles Garrett. Who is he still dating? Sonny Kim, the Team USA gymnast. I think he might be.
Chloe Kim.
What did I say?
Sonny? Sonny. Yeah. Chloe Kim.
Sonny Lee.
Sonny, you're right. Sonny
Chloe
Lee.
Kim.
Chloe Kim. Yeah,
All
he's with Chloe Kim's.
All right. Congratulations to the happy couple, hopefully.
She apparently, reading a USA Today headline, apparently adorably celebrated her boyfriend's Myles Garrett on his record.
His Miles Stone. See what I did there? That's a little taste of your own medicine, James.
I love it, though. See, I'm rubbing off on you in a good way, finally.
The coaching carousel in the NFL, we haven't really touched on this. The Raiders have fired Pete Carroll after one season. They'll keep their GM. The Cards have fired Gannon after 3 seasons. The Browns have fired Stefanski. Sorry about that, Shador.
Speaking of Myles Garrett, no head coach.
Okay. To bring this back to a name that people are going to get really sick of hearing me say over and over. The timing, right, of the Kyle Whittingham exit from the University of Utah, we talked about this, was very, very closely associated with the Michigan job opening and some level of mutual interest being shown. Long before any ink was on any paper, there was some overture from Kyle Whittingham's agent to Michigan. Hey, what do you think of Kyle Whittingham? And Michigan, I guess all they had to do was not respond in the negative. Just be like, oh, interesting. Yeah, we'd like to talk to him. And that was enough for Kyle Whittingham to say, all right, it's not working out here. We're done at Utah. He, for years, talked about the NFL. Oh, I'm not going to get an NFL job. No, it's not going to happen in the NFL. Is Kyle Whittingham sitting in his office in Michigan right now with any inkling, even the tiniest little thing in the back of his head, like, man, could I have gotten that Raiders job? Could I have gotten any of these NFL jobs?
Could I get it now?
Is there any possibility I could? Because, he's not in the same world as Pete Carroll. He's younger than Pete Carroll. He's a lot younger than Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll was a very successful NFL coach, much younger than what Kyle Whittingham is now.
Had more success in his shorter stint in college, too.
So, but if you're Kyle Whittingham, would you be looking at it and going like, why didn't these jobs open up a couple weeks ago? I think no, but maybe.
I think realistically, it's called Black Monday. If you're in the coaching world, college or pro already, that the jobs aren't really going to open up until the day after the season ends. So I don't know that he was thinking about that in that way.
Did you see also that Kyle Whittingham has hired his son? Alex Whittingham is leaving Andy Reid's staff, where he was an assistant defensive line analyst and coach, and he's going to coach linebackers for Michigan.
All right.
I believe he was a walk-on linebacker at the University of Utah in his career playing for his dad.
All right. And obviously has gotten a good experience. How many years was he with Kansas City? It seemed like a while now.
It was a while.
Yeah. It's been, through all of their Super Bowls, I believe. And maybe not the first one, but certainly the last couple. Yeah, so he's gotten good experience there. Sure, it'll be a great hire for them. By the way, I did not hear anything official about Freddie Whittingham. I think we all assumed he's
Freddie. I don't know that an announcement has been made, but Freddie's going.
He's tight ends coach for them. Even his Twitter still says University of Utah, but I thought that was interesting that we haven't.
Yeah, let's see. Alex Whittingham, 33 years old, and he was since 2019 he's been working on Andy Reid's staff. So
that's certainly long enough to cut your teeth to then get a chance like this to be a position coach.
And at the end of the day, I mean, this is one of the benefits of being the guy, right? You get to hire who you want to hire. There are very few corporations, there are very, very few businesses in the world where you as a boss get to do it with as much autonomy as football coaches are allowed to fill out their staff, right? I mean, Kyle Whittingham could hire his wife to be the GM, his son to be the linebackers coach, his daughter to be the equipment manager, and everyone would just have to be like, all right, I guess that's what we're doing.
We believe in Kyle, so we believe in the people he's put in place.
His other son is the groundskeeper.
I mean, all you got to do, I mean, you're throwing out these ridiculous hypotheticals that make me chuckle and probably make everyone else chuckle. All you got to do is look at North Carolina and Jordan Hudson. That's actually a real life,
it's a real
ridiculous example of the kind of power that a head football coach has in the Division I Power 4 level to just hire whoever they want to be whoever they want.
I want to know what that interview is like. You apply for the job, you put your name in. Hey, I'd like to be the linebackers coach at the University of Michigan. Dad.
Says it like that. Dad.
And Kyle Whittingham's just like, all right. Fly up here, we'll conduct an interview. What is that interview like?
Is that like some organizations where it's like, okay, I can't interview you because nepotism, so Jay Hill will be conducting your interview.
Which is worse. Kyle would be harder on the interview than Jay Hill. Jay Hill's just going to be like, well, I'm not going to go back to your dad and be like, this candidate is a turd, and we're not hiring him.
You want to go back to Provo, Jay? You hire my son.
Oh, man. It's amazing.
Most shocking firing so far, NFL, going back to the NFL news on this Black Monday. I don't know that anything's really shocked me. I guess Pete Carroll somewhat does, because you'd think that a guy with that kind of pedigree would get more leeway. But terrible season. So
yeah, I mean, worst record in the league.
Yeah,
so that'll do it. That'll do it to you.
Yeah, maybe it's more surprising guys who haven't been let go yet at the GM or head coaching level. That might be more what I'm more surprised by than the guys that are getting let go today.
All right, here's a little homework in the Daily Dump for people out there, okay? Luke Littler. There's a guy named Luke Littler who just won his second world championship in darts. He's like 18 years old. I just want you to go look this kid up. Every one of us knew at least one of these guys in high school who looked like they were 42 when they were 18. That's this kid. He's a world darts champion. He talks to the crowd. He's a mega star, okay? The darts world is so fascinating and awesome.
It really is, by the way.
I encourage all of you to take a look into it. But this guy, he's 18, but is he really? He's 18, but he's got an old soul in an old body. He's 40.
He's got the old Benjamin Button, Greg Oden, Jack 100%. Effect going on.
Yes.
Jack being the most.
So just find some time today to look up a young man named Luke Littler. And he is
Luke Oltler.
He is not aging particularly well. And I can say that because I'm aging like a banana also. This guy, though, makes me feel a little bit better about it. A reminder also here that the Alex Jensen Coaches Show is tonight at 6.
BYU week. You know, a lot to say about Saturday's game.
Rivalry. Got to take a quick one here. We'll come back on the Sean O'Connell Show. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Another example of how wild the landscape of college football is right now. Transfer portal is open. Negotiation season is upon us for all these college football athletes. Trinidad Chambliss is still in the college football playoff semifinal matchup that you can hear right here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. And he's also appealing to the NCAA, asking for a waiver that will give him a 6th year of college eligibility. So he has a deal in place, announced by him and Ole Miss, that he has a deal in place, an NIL deal in place that would keep him at Ole Miss if the NCAA then says, hey, yes, you can play. Now, he's had a really incredible year. He's got a lot of leverage, I imagine, with Ole Miss. They don't want to have to go into the portal looking for a new quarterback. They don't want to have to start developing a new freshman quarterback. They've got a new head coach. They've got there's too much new already going on with Ole Miss. They want Trinidad Chambliss back. So I imagine he's going to get kind of top of market type money, right? Top of market type money right now, we're finding out in college football for quarterbacks is $5 million plus. So let's be conservative and say that he's going to get $4 million to stay at Ole Miss. What do you think the lawsuit looks like from Chambliss if the NCAA says, no, you can't come back and play? And he's like, you owe me $4 million then.
He Division II?
Yeah, he was Ferris State?
Right.
Something
okay.
like that?
He's one of those Division II for 4 years, right? And then he had extra year of eligibility to play at Ole Miss this year. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be an exorbitant amount he would sue for. In that case, I would hope that the NCAA would be able to have a spine and be like, dude, you played 5 years. You just try the NFL, do something else.
And look, it's not like he was injury plagued and stuck on the depth. He was the starting quarterback for 2 national championship teams in Division II.
And a lot of people listening right now might say, well, Diego Pavia played junior college. This guy, which is not NCAA, this guy played 4 years of NCAA football.
The other thing that sucks about this, right, is that if you allow him this 6th year without really a good reason, then the precedent now is set for the Van Wilders, for people to just be like
Luke Littlers,
because there are plenty of Diego Pavia type players, right? I mean, imagine Cam Rising doesn't get injured, okay, and his career is not stolen from him with bad luck and injury. Cam Rising is not a dude who's going to end up matriculating on to, I don't think, like a starting job in the NFL. He could be a backup forever, probably.
Yeah.
Or a guy like Cam Rising could spend 7 years in college football making like $3, $4, $5 million every year. Like, that's what we need to prevent. And I'm not trying to put any evil on Cam Rising.
It's just an example.
Just an example, but he's like a guy who's an elite college football quarterback, like a really upper crust college football quarterback that probably isn't going to have that level of success at the NFL stage.
In the same way we think about Diego Pavia right now.
Yeah.
Due respect, Heisman runner-up. Doesn't seem like he's going to be a star at the NFL. He could prove us wrong, but right now it doesn't seem like he will be. Trinidad Chambliss is in that same ilk. The difference is, again, Pavia played junior college, not under the NCAA umbrella officially. This guy played NCAA Division II football. Like, just you're having this great moment in the sun at the FBS level, Power 4 level, SEC even, college football playoff. Like, just let that be enough.
Not gonna let it be enough. Brian Regan is taking over the Delta Center February 14th, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Want to send you with a pair of tickets to the show. Tune in right here all week during Topical Trivia for your chance to win. More details are available at ESPN700sports.com. That is a Valentine's date taken care of for you if you can win in Topical Trivia. That'll be in about 42 minutes. Andrea Urban is going to join us in about 3 minutes on the Sean O'Connell Show. It's ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. All right, welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show, hour number 3. Andrea Urban is kind enough to join us, Fox 13 sports reporter, Utah Jazz and Mammoth in Arena host, the 2023 Utah Sportscaster of the Year, and as I have told you many times, the hardest working person in sports here in the state of Utah. Andrea, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Hey, Sean, I'm good. You know, if I ever feel bad about myself, I really just got to give you a call because your intros make me feel great.
Well, look, you deserve it. You are everywhere, and it helps the rest of us who like to do this job because you're creating that much content and getting that many stories. So I appreciate your time on what I'm sure is also another busy day for you.
Yeah.
You have a unique perspective on some of the big things that have been coming down the pipe in Utah sports as of late because, you're a Michigander. And now Kyle Whittingham is headed to the Midwest. And people out there, I have family in the Midwest that all, of course, when this news broke, they text me, they call me, and they kind of want to know, like, okay, so what's the deal? We've seen, the great years of Utah football, but what's this guy like? Yeah, how's he going to fit in?
Wow.
Not a huge Mormon community necessarily in Ann Arbor that I'm aware of. And so people have all these questions. Give me some context. Like, what do people from Michigan know about the staff that's coming in?
Absolutely nothing because I was getting all the texts as well and all the questions. So I went to Michigan State, which this only stings a little bit, but happy for Coach Witt. I even texted Freddie Whittingham and was just like, hey man, if you go, congrats, but this stinks. Like this just stinks to build a relationship with so many of these position coaches and then just have them move on. And now they're saying go blue. So my entire family is diehard U of M or Michigan State, depending on where each cousin or kid has gone to school. And I'm getting texts from my uncle. What does this mean? What's happening? And let me tell you, I will say Michigan football fans are not as kind as Utah football fans. And I know Utah football fans still complain and still have things to say, but overall believe in what has been working for years on years. And, Kyle will figure it out, right? And now he's going over to Michigan where these fans will not give Witt and his staff any space for error, and they will yell inappropriate things, and they will target. I mean, it is off the charts in Big Ten country. I mean, that's why when I came here, 6 years ago, I was like, oh, okay, Pac-12's cool. This is kind of on that same, but not really because of the hostility that goes into it. If you look at the press conference, Coach Witt's first introductory press conference, how many times did they ask, how do you feel about Ohio State? How do you feel about Ohio State? And that's because they're not kidding. Like, it's not this historic rivalry where it's like, oh, we like some of the coaches over there because we work together. No, we hate everyone's guts and you better hate them too. And so they don't know anything, but I also think at the same time fans are excited because I don't think you could have hired a better guy after what the fiasco that happened at Michigan.
Yeah, if you're looking for scandal repellent, there's nobody better than Kyle Whittingham and the assistants that he's bringing with him. I mean, obviously, some big losses for Utah, but also for BYU. And I know that you have followed Jay Hill from when he was a head coach at Weber State and then obviously the coordinator at Brigham Young. How big of a loss is that for Kalani and his staff?
Oh, huge. My heart's just been breaking, really, just seeing them be introduced at Michigan and waving and smiling, and then you see Jay Hill there clapping, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, they're gone, like it almost just never happened, even though, of course, it did. Jay Hill, my goodness, what a guy who spent his time, I think it was 8 years, as the head coach at Weber State and gave that program this just elite status in the Big Sky. I remember talking to other Big Sky schools when I was in Idaho, and everyone hated Weber State because Jay Hill had them in tip-top shape. And then you see him get more into his comfort zone when it comes to just locking in on the defense and what BYU's been able to do. And he gets along well with Kalani and that staff. But I just bet you when you get offered an opportunity to go to U of M, I mean, it's almost impossible to look away. But Jay Hill is not only a kind, smart, human being on and off that football field, but he was great to work with too as a media member. And I was talking with a writer in Michigan. He reached out to me asking me questions, and he said, "Man, we have not felt that way about a coaching staff in a long time here. It's cool that you and other people have good things to say about Hill and Whittingham and so on, because we can honestly say that we haven't felt that way." And I'm excited for them, but also I'm still a little unsure about it all.
Yeah, look, it's going to be an adjustment for everyone. Again, you cover every team in the state, and there's all this like mixing and matching, and now Kevin McGivern is coming down from the Utah State staff to coordinate at the University of Utah. And look, his name wasn't at the top of a lot of people's lists. He was a lesser known candidate than like a Jonathan Smith, who came into Salt Lake City apparently to have discussions about this job. And there was some conversation about maybe Aaron Roderick coming back from Provo to Salt Lake City. And then you look at the numbers and you look at what McGivern has done, especially with the wide receiver position and with his quarterbacks. And I think there's a lot of reasons to be encouraged. You covered his most recent offense at Utah State. So tell me what you think of McGivern coming to Utah.
Yeah, I was also surprised by that one, and not in a what this guy way, and more in just like okay, they see something and are seeing his vision differently. So when I did go up to Logan, listen, I'm a big Bryson Barnes fan. I've said it time and time again, but I loved what he was able to do with this offense, because their running back core was able to thrive while still Barnes aired it out on a few plays where you kind of didn't see it coming. And I liked that, because you think it's going to go into the hands of, I think it was Miles Davis Jr. and for the run. And then all of a sudden Barnes is airing it out. And then when Barnes got injured later in the season, their quarterback depth was deep enough to bring in Conover into the Potato Bowl and at least deliver a touchdown there. I know they fell in that game, but there were a lot of moments. Anthony Garcia, another quarterback who was also playing wide receiver, and he's going both ways and he's doing all the things. And I liked that it seemed like everybody knew how to play every single position, even if on the roster it said you were a QB or a wide receiver. And I think right there shows that maybe McGivern was cooking up something that I wasn't even aware of until I saw the depth come into the football game. And that's when I kind of thought, oh, Garcia knows what he's doing, and he's supposed to be under center, and he just caught a touchdown, like things like that. And I think that's what excites me and kind of what made me go, okay, cool, let's see what he's going to do at Utah.
Andrea Urban is our guest here on the Sean O'Connell Show, talking a little Utah college football right now. We'll get to the Utah Jazz here in just a second, but Morgan Scalley is now the head coach, and we've been getting everyone's thoughts. I mean, I love Morgan. He was a captain when I was a walk-on the team, and I've known him since. Great person. I think he's an awesome and intelligent football coach. I think he's a great leader. I think he's incredibly charismatic. But this is his first job, and it is a big one as a head coach. How do you think it's going to go in the early years?
Oh my gosh, it's a huge job, and I was just rooting for them in the Vegas Bowl. I was home in Michigan, and we had Michigan on one TV and Utah on the other TV, and I'm going back and forth, and I just wanted them to have that performance that they had, because Morgan deserves a good start. And I actually think it should be pretty seamless. I mean, Dan Pierce said it in his press conference post-game of the Vegas Bowl. He's like, we met with Scalley right when everything changed. He said, let's do this thing and let's go. And then you look at all the distractions that the team had going into that one, and they still managed to win 44-22. So in that instance, I think this should be a smooth transition where this team is confident. If we can keep the players in the house, then I'm excited for what Scalley can do in this era. I think he's going to be great off the start. I really do. And maybe that's just me being optimistic, and because I do like working with him. Anytime we had the opportunity to speak to the defensive side of the ball, he was always pretty open to have conversations about any questions you had. He didn't dance around things, which I like that. And I think it's going to be great. I just am now curious to see who they maintain in this new era, because that is a huge part. On top of just Morgan, it has a huge part on, well, who's your talent on the football field?
All right, let's switch gears a little bit here. Talk about this Utah Jazz team that, if we go back to last year, I mean, obviously the tanking experiment didn't pay off the way that people wanted it to, and there was a
Yeah.
little bit of angst, and I think that led to, some personnel changes in the front office, and the promises were there that, hey, it's not going to look like it did, and it hasn't. This is a really fun and interesting team, obviously a young team. And while the fan base was maybe expecting that tanking of some sort was going to happen, these guys go out there and they compete every single night, and they're better than they were supposed to be, Andrea, which now puts the front office in a really weird situation. But you've been so close to it. Are you surprised to this point what the Jazz team has become? I think ahead of schedule.
Oh, absolutely. I'm having so much fun watching this Jazz team because it makes me, as a fan and as a person who covers this team, it makes me excited that they're trying and that you can see the passion in Keontae George's eyes and it's not just Lowry game after game and you see Kyle Filipowski's growth and development really coming to fruition. I mean, sometimes it's not always the wins, but when you look at the Jazz Pistons game, like, are you kidding me? What was the confidence and the passion and you could see them looking over at Will Hardy and like listening and then executing. And it just seemed like this well-oiled machine. And then you have nights like where they had the lead on the Warriors the entire time. And then down the stretch, can't make a shot and Golden State wins the ball game. And so there are flashes. There are flashes of growth and development, and I'm so excited that there might be a chance here for Keontae and Lowry to maybe get an all-star nod because it's cool that in the beginning of the season, Will Hardy said, anyone can have a breakout year, and that can be anyone in the league, anyone on our team. It could be a rookie. It could be a 3-year vet. And my goodness, did Keontae George, after having a rocky last season, come back and just answer the call. And that's been a lot of fun to see a 22-year-old just calling the shots and making the shots. And it's exciting to watch. But, yeah, at the same time, I'm also sitting here going, okay, 12-22 is our record. Now what?
Yeah, now what, right? Because, like I said, I was alluding to the decision that the front office might have to make where you've got to pick that you don't want to see conveyed to Oklahoma City of all teams, right? A young, already championship caliber squad that isn't just going to cause you problems this year, but for the next 5 or 10, right? And you've got Lowry Markkanen playing at all-star level. You've got Keontae George flirting with that same kind of distinction. And then you've got, I think – weirdly, the Walker Kessler injury does you a favor in terms of him not being available and adding to that mix and making you even better than you are. But they basically promised the fan base, hey, we're not going to do it on purpose, but you might have to do it on purpose if you want to keep that pick.
I know. Oh man, this is a hard conversation for me because I always want to win the ball game and I always want to have something to root for. And towards the end of the season last year, I heard it from the fan base and I heard it from just people who were around the Jazz games being like, man, this feels like they're not even trying, or it feels like they're not giving it their all, and that hurts us. Like, that makes us feel bad. And so I don't ever want to feel that way. But at the same time, how do we make ourselves better? Oh, it's so hard. So I don't have the answer for that one because I want to keep doing what they're doing, which is trying to win the game every single night for growth and development purposes. And I will leave it up to the front office to decide what they got to do because this is why I don't do that dang job, because that kind of stuff makes me sad because I just want them to go out and let each guy be a star each night. And not going to lie, Cody Williams throwing down the other night, I'm happy to see him playing with some confidence too. So something's working over there. Something's working. I just don't know what the next steps are.
Yeah, I don't either. So we'll leave that to the people who are paid to make those decisions. But look, you're like the queen of fan engagement, especially in that role. And I got to imagine that your work experience is significantly different this year than last because of some of the things we've already been talking about. Can you give me a sense of how different it is this year?
Oh, absolutely. Are you kidding me? I had to hype up the crowd when we were down by 20 last season. Yeah, fans, let's go. We're down by 20. There's still a chance. And that was tough because sometimes they'd look at me and be like, get out there and bring your energy because there's none in the Delta Center right now. And this year, it feels very much like I can almost join in with the fans' energy and build on that. And then when I go into the stands now and get interactive with the fans, they're not saying things that they previously were like, what's going on? Tell them to do this and tell them to do that, which first of all, can't do that. Can't tell them anything. I'm just here to hold the microphone. But the hostility is much different. And there seems to be like a sense of belief throughout the fan base now. And I will say, shout out that jersey exchange. I'm not seeing any more yellow in the house. And I think bringing the purple back, getting everyone in their new threads is good when it comes to bringing a fan base together and bringing that arena together. And there's also been updates to the arena. So it feels much more legit, and it feels like a sense of belief through the fan base versus last year hyping them up when there was no chance of winning that game.
So give me a sense of the team culture right now. I'm incredibly impressed with Will Hardy because he walks this line, it seems, to like he knows – when he gets to, like, he's supposed to be the cool young coach that relates to his players on a level that maybe these old guys don't, but he's not afraid to coach them hard. And we've gotten some great little sound bites and things like that don't offend me, but if you care about language, you might get bothered by. Like, I love what I'm seeing from Will Hardy. I mean, love it. And he's establishing what I think is an important culture that is not going to pay off this year, but hopefully sooner than later. You're closer to it than I am. So give me a sense of what that actually looks like.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Coach Hardy is a noble guy, if I can say that. He does not take crap from anyone or anything, and he doesn't care if you're the star of the show or if you think you're the star. He wants you to share the basketball. He wants you to, while you're on the bench, watch the game, see how when you get into the game, how can you make a difference versus just waiting until it's your turn to get in the game and then figure it out. I mean, Will has been big on that. He's like, I'm so confused. When our guys are out, what are we doing? Like, are we watching? Are we learning? Are we adjusting? So then when you come in, those adjustments can be made. There's just so many things that every time I talk to Will or hear from Will and just an availability, he's like, okay, sure, our offense is on, like we're scoring points, but this, and then he just goes off about transition defense, and he goes off about, I'm going to pull you out of the game if you are not defending, and I love it because he stands by that, and we literally see him say something and then do that. So that's another interesting part. It's like, okay, are we losing? Are we winning? Are we trying? Are we not? But then you look at Will Hardy, and my goodness, he's got passion. He's got confidence. He also doesn't put up with anything. And I love it. There's a viral or semi-viral video of him going off on the bench, and people are like, oh, that's going to get him fired in Utah. And I said, no, it's not. No, it's not, because this is what we're looking for, and this is what we need. So keep it coming, Coach Hardy.
You could say bad words on NBA benches, ladies and gentlemen. It's just part of the job. Yeah, Jerry Sloan survived here for a long time, but he'd make a sailor blush with his language. Ace Bailey, what do you think of his rookie year?
Oh my gosh. Okay. I love Ace Bailey because everybody was like, he doesn't want to be here. He's going to be this negative energy around because doesn't want to be present. Have I seen out of any player embrace this state, this fan base, this space, his role? He's so not like, I guess, humble. I was going to say real. Like when he comes into the availabilities, he's like, man, I'm learning so much. I didn't even know this, or this. And he'll just own the fact that this is a lot harder than what I thought it was going to be. And I love that. And then I was just at the Boys and Girls Club in Salt Lake with Keontae and Ace Bailey. They were given back for the holidays. And Ace was so, didn't have to be there. It was Keontae's event. Ace decided to go, wanted to be there, and even talked to me. And he's like, yeah, Keontae said get out of the house. And so I wanted to come. And I love that this is a 19-year-old old? Is he 19, 18? 18 maybe. His number's 19. And he is embracing this place, and he seems like he's so willing to learn. And this image that, social media painted of him is not true. And yeah, is he having a Donovan Mitchell rookie season? No, but he's so smart, and you can see that on the court for the moves that he's making, whether sharing the ball or when he has that fadeaway J that just splashes. So I'm a stand for Ace Bailey.
I like what we're seeing from this Jazz team. I hope it doesn't cost them a lottery pick, but I think it might. That's not for me to decide. I'm just here to have fun and watch these games. And you make it a lot more fun. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for having me. Happy New Year and all the things. And let's have a good 2026.
We will see and hear Andrea Urban around, because if you care about sports in Utah, she's everywhere. Thanks, Andrea.
Thanks, Sean.
All right, more on the Sean O'Connell Show. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. All right, I got a problem with you, Ravens. I know it's Monday. We don't air grievances yet, but the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers, an absolute thriller for the crown of the AFC North. And look, this is one of the elite rivalries in NFL football. You had Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry and company. You had Aaron Rodgers turning back the clock, refusing to fall victim to the undefeated Father Time and making me look stupid in the process. I wrote off Aaron Rodgers these last 2 years. I told people at the beginning of this season, nope, not going to be a playoff team. Pittsburgh thinks that they're doing something clever here. It's not going to work. And James, it shouldn't have worked. But kickers, man. Kickers are so aggravating. Also, everyone involved in the offensive game planning for the Baltimore Ravens is aggravating to me because you have to remember that Derrick Henry is a weapon for your team always. I don't know why you have to be reminded of that. I don't know why people don't just wake up in Ravens purple with a big smile on their face, like, "Yep, we still got Derrick Henry." Which play was it? I think I'm talking about a third quarter. Like, he had a 9-yard run, and when he got tackled, he didn't actually really get tackled. It just was like a weird traffic jam that stopped his forward motion, and the whistle blows.
Those tackles, by the way. If we were talking about if this were airing of grievances, I might have a grievance against that. Even though that should be how you officiate the play, I hate plays ending that way. It's like what you were talking about with the anticlimactic sack.
Yeah,
Myles Garrett and Joe Burrow just falling down. It's like, I take the guy down anyway.
It was one of these plays where he's got a couple blockers kind of driving the pile in front of him, and then the defense is able to stop the pile, and his legs are churning. There's a guy on his legs, and the camera shot was just perfect. Derrick Henry is just looking down at whatever Steelers safety or linebacker that's tangled up in his legs, and he's just mad at him, incredulous. "Why are you trying to tackle me? You can't tackle me." And he's standing there, this 275-pound mountain of muscle who's a running back, and it's just "Get off of me, dude." And it's just an innocuous play. It's just a regular routine play in a drive where he forces the entire Pittsburgh defense to get involved in the tackle, and they still don't bring him all the way to the ground. All of that, yet and still, the Ravens, after a missed extra point by the Pittsburgh Steelers, only the second missed extra point. So if you're a Steelers fan, you're thinking, "Oh my gosh, stupid kicker." If he makes the extra point, Pittsburgh's got a 3-point lead. Even in a field goal is going to send it to overtime.
When was the last one that he kicked? It was he hadn't missed an extra point this season. It had been multiple years. And so if you're a Steelers fan, you're automatic, the Andy Automatica, automatic Andy around here. That's how they felt about Chris Boswell. So for that to go wide right, they had to have been "Oh no, this is not our night." And then it still ends up okay.
And it still ends up okay because of another kicker, because Tyler Loop, the Ravens did the thing where they just reposition. They just take the knee yeah, we got a kicker who's going to make this. He's going to send us to the playoffs.
They had a timeout, take one shot at the end zone, right?
It's 27-26. He's going to drive this thing through. We're good, baby.
Yeah.
That's not what happens.
You saw the priest, the video of the priest before the game, right? Spreading holy water, and that end of the end zone. You can't make it up, man.
Just insane. And because of this, season on the line, Aaron Rodgers in the fourth quarter, 11 of 14, 133 yards and a touchdown, without, one could make an argument, 80% of his best offensive weapons.
Also without any communication in his helmet. They burned all their timeouts.
Because the helmet communication wasn't working. And I did not know this, but in college football, if communication goes down in the helmets for one team, the other team also has to turn theirs off.
Oh, a fairness thing.
In the NFL, they're just like, screw you guys. That's your fault. You need to fix the helmet.
I guess I don't mind that totally at the college level because there is some semblance of like you guys are – this is not fully professional football. But I love that for professional football. It's like, no, that's a you problem,
like, oh.
Steelers and Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is cursing everybody on the sideline. It was great theater, but it was also like, no way. The Steelers are doomed. And that was before the missed extra point.
Imagine being the guy like the A1, the tech. Your job is to make sure that line of communication stays open. And right, having been on, I mean, obviously not walkie-talkies and helmets type situation, but like if you're on a television broadcast, okay, I've got my headset, right? I've got my stick mic. I've got a backup headset. I've got a backup stick mic. I've got an IFB pack with the earpiece in, and I've got a backup one of those, and I've got like a stack of batteries in case the batteries go out on the main one or on the backup one, right? So there's this like, what's that, 6 times redundancy to where the communication between me, the play-by-play broadcaster, and the truck can stay open for a fight broadcast, right?
And ultimately, us the consumers be able to hear you
correct
on air.
So, and that's, by the way, that's in the Professional Fighters League, which is like right now a distant second place in MMA, which is like a distant 10th place behind NFL football, right? So what we're talking about, Aaron Rodgers, the Pittsburgh Steelers, playoff implications, rivalry game, Sunday Night Football. I mean, this is the most expensive, most meticulous, most particularly cared for broadcast / sporting event, like regular season sporting event that you can find. This is as big of a deal as you can find in American sports. And some poor audio tech whose job it is to make sure that the booth can talk to Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Rodgers can hear the booth and all that stuff. Something went wrong. Some equipment manager whose job it is to make sure that the headset is working. That must be the biggest. Like I would be willing to bet a significant amount of money that person is not employed today. Whether that's fair or not, and it probably isn't, because of course there are just bugs, there are just technology breaks down, cars break down, planes break, like stuff breaks down.
No matter what you do, like you just described the setup for PFL, all the redundancies you had, your main your main pack and your backup one could go down, and batteries could not fix it, and you'd be screwed. And that's not the tech's fault.
Right.
This stuff happens.
Stuff just happens, right? There are ghosts in the machine that'll get you. And maybe that's what happened. Maybe there's no user error at all. Yeah. Maybe there's no operator error at all, except it doesn't matter in that moment whose fault it is. Somebody's going to have to pay. And the fact that they were able to overcome that, and there's like a real-time consequence. Burning those timeouts could be a major difference maker in the game, and should be a major difference maker in the game, except for a kicker. This, by the way, the same weekend that a bunch of people are starting to do this once or twice a year. Hey, is kicking hard enough? The NFL kickers are so good now. Elite college football kickers are so good now. Like, it's kind of boring. The Dan Patrick Show this morning on our airwaves, they were talking about it. I think it was, I don't know which one of the Danettes was just like, look, man, if you get possession with a couple of minutes left, you really only need to get 35 yards after a touchback to be in range for an NFL kicker and guarantee that you're going to at least be able to force the tie in a close game. Like, they were having that conversation today. No, not true, because human error is undefeated. Kickers will find a way, especially, and half of me, not half, like 4% of me, looks at it and just goes, what is wrong with all of us thinking that we could do that job? 96% of me is like, what is wrong with that guy whose only job is to do that?
96%. The other thing that makes it not a guarantee is, did you see how Lamar Jackson almost squandered perfect field position almost single-handedly?
He tries to do too much sometimes.
And then Isaiah Likely bailed them all out with an incredible catch, which you thought, okay, it worked out. Holy crap. But when he sails it over DeAndre Hopkins' head instead of just throwing it straight to him and getting the first down and living to fight another day. And by the way, DeAndre Hopkins, no one was around him. He could have turned and run anyway. He didn't need your floater pass that went 20 yards ahead of him. So he does that. Then he rolls right into the pass rush the next play and has to sling a miracle out of bounds to avoid grounding and a sack. I mean, he did his best to lose that game for the Ravens on that drive. After what was that kick return? That was an incredible kick return by the Ravens to put him basically at midfield. You're like, okay, a missed field goal is the only way they lose this game, and of course that's how it happens. But it should not have taken a miracle catch by Isaiah Likely, I guess is what I'm saying, to put them in that position.
Lamar was asked after the game about his future with the Ravens, John Harbaugh's future with the Ravens, all that.
Yeah, he was asked too. Yeah.
He basically said, don't talk to me about that right now. Like, Lamar he's not focused on that right now. He said he was trying to process the loss. I'm torn when you get an answer like this from a starting quarterback, from a big-time athlete, because you've been talking to your friends, your family, your agent, your coaches, whoever, for weeks about all this stuff behind the scenes, not on business hours. And when you're asked about it, if you don't want to answer it, okay. But you don't need time to process, okay? You don't. You're a professional athlete. You're not stunned by winning. You're not stunned by losing. And if you want to say something about how your kicker screwed it up for you, you can. But no definitive answer from Lamar Jackson about what his future is going to be.
And John Harbaugh was asked too, and he just said, yeah, I want to be here. And kind of left it at that. So, to be fair, the way the guy asked him was like, do you want to be here, basically? He said, yeah, I want to be here. I want to be an NFL head coach at the place that I've only been the only place I've been an NFL head coach.
Yeah. So, I want to have a multi-million-dollar a year job. I want to have one of the best 32 jobs in my profession. Yeah, I want that.
With all that criticism I just laid on Lamar Jackson's feet aside, with one of the 4-5 best quarterbacks in the league, recent two-time MVP. Yeah, you want that job still. Absolutely. To your point about Derrick Henry being the biggest offensive weapon for them, and the Ravens sometimes seemingly forgetting that, I remember Chris Collinsworth, he and Mike Tirico were fantastic on the broadcast, by the way, as they typically are. I remember him saying right before the last Ravens touchdown, that great throw to Zay Flowers, who was inexplicably open, could have ran to freaking Cleveland and no one before anyone caught up to him. I remember him saying, the reason this opens up is because the only thing the Steelers are concerned about is Derrick Henry. And sure enough, they kind of fake the toss to Henry, and that opens it up. But at the same time, you're like, that worked out for you, but why aren't you just running the ball with Derrick Henry?
Yeah.
In that situation, they had 3 timeouts. They only needed 1 score. Anyway, it really is kind of baffling how often they do that, and it plays into Lamar feeling like, I gotta do it all by myself, when it's like, no, you don't. You have this guy.
And by the way, like, you're already playing on Derrick Henry's a freak, right? But it still kind of feels like you're on borrowed time with him. Like, it's going to come off the rails at some point. He's had a longer, more successful career than every running back in the NFL. He's well past all the averages. And I think I mean, his size is obviously not a detriment to him. To some of these guys that are excessively large at that position, it decreases their longevity. That's not the case for him. But it feels like take advantage of it while you got it. Anyway. The drive with Spence Checketts will be starting at 2 o'clock. Is Spence in studio today?
Spence is in studio today, and we might be able to tease kind of a bit of a special edition of both shows tomorrow regarding Morgan Scalley's introductory press conference.
We also have some tickets to give away. Brian Regan is taking over the Delta Center on February 14th, and we'll have a trivia question for you next on the Sean O'Connell Show. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 to 92.1 FM. Because we were just talking about the Ravens and Lamar, Brian Regan tickets on Valentine's Day at the Delta Center, 877-353-0700. If you could tell me How many touchdowns Lamar Jackson accounted for this year for the Baltimore Ravens, who narrowly missed the playoffs? 877-353-0700. Lamar has accounted for how many touchdowns this season in Baltimore? The Drive with Spence Checketts is coming up next. Spence Checketts and Porter Larson do an excellent show every single day. I expect today to be, on that level, up to par with what I'm used to. Spence is here in our Broadway studios, looking handsome as ever. How are you?
You hear me?
I can.
Sorry, I was busy selling our radio station.
Who are you selling it to?
Hopefully clients that will pay us money to talk about things.
Oh.
Someone's got to do it.
Oh, okay. Selling advertising on the station.
Indeed.
You're not actually handing the keys over to somebody else.
No,
Okay.
I don't own the station. So
well, you never know.
If I was selling it on someone's behalf,
You're
I
an
think
entrepreneurial sort. I wouldn't be surprised.
we'd run into some problems. How was your break, man? You good?
It's cool, yeah. It was great.
Good job today. Was it Ari Tepkin?
Yeah.
That was a good interview.
I like Ari.
I learned
Ari's
a lot.
really, really good. He's an encyclopedia of Big 12 knowledge, and it's moving fast right now. There's a lot of different coaching staffs are being hammered together, including the University of Utah's, and now all these guys. Part of the reason there's urgency in putting those staffs together is because these guys have to figure out what their roster is going to look like, and this next 10 days is the largest determining window for that.
Yeah, and the way you were phrasing it earlier is unfortunate, but it's the reality, just free agency. And, you have to look at this as – I keep thinking about Indiana, right? You can rebuild a program and win national championships in 1 year now. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and did you see what Indiana's done in the transfer portal?
I have not tracked their transfer portal window.
Okay, Fernando Mendoza, he's going off to the NFL.
Yes, he is.
Your Heisman Trophy winner, right? And Kurt Cignetti is just like, oh, what are we going to do to replace Josh Hoover, the TCU quarterback, talented guy, he's committed to Indiana. So they're preparing for a national championship run right now.
Yeah.
And they're just like, I don't want to develop a freshman. Hey, that guy's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
He's coming.
Yeah.
And also, two of the best edge rushers in the transfer class are coming, and a great offensive lineman is coming. They signed 6 dudes today, or got commitments for 6 dudes today.
It's still wild to me. I do like that they've narrowed it down to one window, right? So we don't have to worry about what's coming up in the spring. This is it. But I heard Dan Lanning talk about this. Other coaches have talked about this as well. If we're going to open up the portal on January the 2nd, the season has to be over January 1st. Because right now on these staffs, almost all of the staffs left, you have multiple coaches that have taken other jobs.
Yeah. So
they're calling plays in the national semifinals and then getting on the phone to try to recruit players to go play for them at their new job.
Yeah.
It's just a really hard thing to ask when it comes to this is the deal. Any team now, because the coaching carousel is so crazy, any team that advances to the CFP and then wins a game, you're going to lose coaches. They're going to take jobs. They're going to take head coaching jobs. They're going to go elsewhere. So I heard Urban talking about this earlier today on his podcast. Can you really trust your offensive coordinator to do the best job he possibly can to help you win a national championship when he has his own job to think about that he's already taken? You know what I mean? We're making progress, I think, to kind of curtail the chaos. But if we're going to have one transfer portal, it's January 2nd in 15 days. The season has to be over January 1st.
Make Dan Lanning the commissioner of college football, because he had a solution for it right there.
Yeah.
He said, get rid of the second bye week.
Yeah.
Start everyone in week 0, and let's play continuously. Georgia didn't need 26 days between the end of their season and their first playoff game. By the way, we've learned it doesn't help you having that first-round bye. It's been a curse for every team that has first-round bye.
Yeah.
So let's just do it. You go from conference championship weekend to first weekend of the playoffs to the second weekend of the playoffs, and you're done with this thing on January 1st. And I would like that, actually, because it's it's a clear cutoff. I don't have the bandwidth to be like, all right, I'm going to make sure that I'm watching as much NHL, NBA, college, and NFL as possible.
Yeah.
Oh, and also I pay attention to the combat sports as well, right? I like when Christmas time is when I have to start paying attention to the NBA.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If I had less college football to worry about, only a week of college football to worry about after that, I'd be fine with it.
Yeah, and I don't think you're in danger of losing any interest because it's become such a 24/7 sport that we cover. And I know there's always this battle to try to capture as much of the calendar as you possibly can. The Super Bowl kids used to be in January, and now obviously that's a February event. And college football used to be over by the new year. And so there was a more truncated way to kind of consume the stuff you want to consume. And you don't necessarily conflict with the other leagues or other sports, but there is a battle for the calendar. I don't think college or pro football has to worry about trying to extend out the calendar anymore because people are going to be interested in it year-round no matter what.
I hope that someone in those decision-making rooms in college football is talking about this not only from a practicality standpoint, but also from, like, there are a serious number of college football fans who are becoming disenfranchised because of the calendar.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because of those conflicts that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because they're like, wait. I don't want my guy recruiting the players on my team. He took a new job. He's now recruiting my quarterback who's in a playoff game to go play for him somewhere else.
Yeah.
I don't want this. I can't follow this. I don't like this. If you have a cleaner break between when those decisions have to be made, when jobs are taken and guys actually show up to help recruit and things like that, it would be friendlier interface for the fans.
100%. And also a cleaner way to know that if the coach coaching for you while you're trying to win a national championship is all in on your process. Because, look, it's just human nature. Most all of these coordinators, not all of them, but most all of these coordinators want to be a head coach. And so if you're the like, and Urban was talking about this when they won a national championship, Dan Mullen had already taken a head coaching job, and Urban let him call plays. But Urban himself admitted, like, I was wondering if Dan was leaving our coaching meeting, and this is even way before all the chaos now, but if you're an Ohio State fan, do you wonder what the deal would be if your head coach was, and look, Ryan Day's a phenomenal play caller, but suddenly the coaches are getting poached. You lose your play caller. It's all on your head coach, and you wonder whether or not the guy calling plays gives a rip about if you're going to win a national championship because all he cares about is his new job. And I don't blame him.
Did anyone raise their hand on Urban's conversation and say, well, nobody worried about whether or not you wanted us to win the Fiesta Bowl? You'd already taken the Florida job.
They should have. But, the 2004 Pitt game was not brought up during the podcast.
It should have
been, damn it. I agree with you.
Come on, Urban.
Yeah.
Look, expect when Spence takes over here in just 3 minutes, expect a blistering tirade against Kyle Whittingham's newest hire at Michigan because the Spence Checketts, the drive, the official stance of the show is firmly anti-nepotism.
Oh, everyone knows that about me.
Exactly.
Yeah. That doesn't even have to be said.
And Kyle hired his own son.
Yeah.
Spence ain't going to stand for that.
No, we're all disappointed. We're all very disappointed that, Coach Witt decided. Look, the official, if I haven't made this clear, let me make it clear once again. We're now in the 2 o'clock hour.
Yeah.
So as we've changed time slots between 2 and 6, the stance is very, very clear. We do not believe in nepotism. We do not cheer for the sons of famous fathers. We want all of them to fail miserably. So we will cover that. We will cover that front to back.
All right, wonderful. We are all rooting for success for Morgan Scalley, who is 1-0 as a head coach. His official introductory press conference, which just feels kind of like a little interesting on the timing. His official introductory press conference is tomorrow. We will carry it live on the station. That'll be basically right now as this changeover is happening. So make sure you're listening from 11 to 2 tomorrow, then from 2 to 6 tomorrow. We'll have that and so much more. Stay tuned for The Drive. Thanks for listening to the Sean O'Connell Show. We'll do it again tomorrow on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.